que salta del cómic.
He thought he was in control. How wrong he was.
Hey, what's up? It's Shane with Dynamis Media, and I am joined here with the man, the myth, the legend, Stefan.
Whoa, why'd you cue that up so long? Was it so you could step on the joke I was going to do? Because I was ready to do it.
Yeah. Go ahead, do it.
I was going to say, Death Ship.
Death Ship.
It sounds
You
like
mean
a...
Ghost Ship? Or wait, hold on.
No, it's Death Ship. Oh, no, I watched the wrong movie. But no, yeah,
no.
I thought the Death Ship sounded like a death metal band, or maybe melodic, like black metal. Like it sounds like
Death Clock.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, except spelled like death, not like DETH, like Death Clock does.
What a crazier movie this would have been if this was Death Ship. I think it probably would have done better.
Why?
I mean, you watched it.
Yeah, but I don't see like how it would have improved it.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna everyone needs. I picked this. I'm gonna own it. This was my bad. It's one of those times where the artwork gets you. It's like you're at the old video store. There's like the 3 or 4 shelves, and they're all the tapes are lined up back to back, and you're looking at the VHS like, oh, which one am I gonna get? And then you see this badass looking ship with a mouth, and you're like, this has got to be it with red writing. Like what? It's like the Jaws of ships movies, you know what I mean? But I'm going to tell you, that ship did not have a mouth. That was very misleading.
Yeah, among other things. But yeah, no,
it
did not have a mouth. That's correct.
I was pretty upset about it. So, but yeah, if you haven't guessed it, we're doing 1980 Death Ship.
Yeah, not 2002's Ghost Ship.
Yeah.
Which,
right.
Hilariously enough, not related. Like they aren't even though they're posters, if you look at them, you'd think, hey, like, are these related? No.
Someone owes someone money.
Surely they do.
Some royalties being traded somewhere, but no. Yeah, I don't even know where to start with this one. So you'll hear more as we unwrap this gem, but before we get into that, some quick housekeeping. We have the website. It's doing its thing. We're kind of trying to be more active on social media. We've grabbed a lot of new followers, and some people message us saying some pretty cool stuff. So thank you to everyone who's reached out to us. New listeners, welcome. We're always like trying to engage with our audience. So if you can, try to follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We do stuff on X too, but not like the content you make on X isn't as like robust as what you can do on Facebook and Instagram. So I'm tending to do more Instagram stuff and Facebook stuff. So we have a Facebook group, friends of the show, fans of the show are on there talking and stuff. So, don't be shy. Pop over and say hi. We also found some other cool podcasts. I'm going to give them a listen and then send them to Stefan, and maybe we can give them a quick shout out next time after we kind of listen to a couple episodes and try to get what they're all about. But I don't know. Did you have any housekeeping?
Just a reminder that the X Twitter handle is at Darkside Drive-In, and then the Instagram is at the Darkside Drive-In. So there's, 2 different versions, but they are the same. So, because I always get them mixed up, so I have to like remember them.
That's why you get paid the big bucks.
Yeah, and yeah, sure. And then in the spirit of thinking about new listeners and stuff, I try to watch like Tubi's like What's Leaving, and I saw that a couple of our previous episodes, the movies that were on Tubi are going to be leaving Tubi. That doesn't mean they are going to be gone forever. There's been others like Killer Clowns from Outer Space that literally left and came right back on. But the ones that are leaving, if you listen to this and you thought about those movies and you're like, hey, I wanted to watch those movies and I haven't gotten to it, just in case, you might want to try to pencil it in. It was The Burning, which is one of our Summer Tri-Slash-a-thon films. And then a more recent one, The Video Dead. Both,
No.
yeah, those two are leaving. I'm hoping they'll come back. That this is just another one of those like license expiry things, but they have a agreement. Especially since there's a couple of movies on the list that are leaving. There were ones that I had on the list for us to get to eventually. So I'm hoping that this isn't like a bad sign, because Tubi recently changed their logo and it doesn't look as good. And they recently got like a new like CFO or something. And I'm like really worried that they're going to be pulling like a Max and like messing everything up now that they have all this goodwill. It's like, please don't do what other streaming services do. But I guess as long as they don't charge money, they will never be as bad as like your Netflixes and your Maxes and all of them.
So, like, did they get bought out? Like, what's going on with them?
No. They just changed their logo. They thought it'd be like a rebranding thing, and I guess they had just a bunch of people in the room for like the focus group who just had no taste. I mean, it'll happen. Sometimes you just have a bunch of people who just have a bad take. And that's what happened. And I don't know. There's something about that gave me some concern about the new executive they put in, and it was something about their like work that they'd done in the past. And I was like, ooh, I hope that's not a reflection of what they're going to do at Tubi. But I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, and I don't want to, slander someone without having my facts straight. So I'll just say they
killed a guy.
Yeah. No, that I could look past that.
Hey, we could do the new CFO of Tubi definitely did not kill and murder 4 people. Just being clear.
Definitely did not.
They did not kill and murder 4 people.
Certainly not. They certainly
I love that joke.
Did not. But yeah, so I can't remember what it was about them that kind of gave me the willies. But there's something about it that I was like, oh no, I hope this isn't a bad sign for their strategy going forward, because like their growth has been because of what they offer. And that's the thing about all these like streaming services is they always grow because of what they offer. And then they're like, and now we have to change our strategy because we aren't growing anymore. It's like, well, perpetual growth is impossible. Like, human beings are a finite resource. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. So like, you have to like, I don't know. It's just the curse of like shareholders, like having to be responsible to shareholders when their expectations are constant growth. And that's just not a realistic thing. It's not a realistic strategy.
Yeah. And the new Tubi is giving off like super huge Hulu vibes. Even the advertisements are now like the same ones I get on Hulu, which kind of pissed me off.
I wouldn't even know. I don't even look at the ads when they come on. I'm just like, TikTok, baby, let's swipe.
Let's get the dopamine hits coming.
But you expect me to just sit with my thoughts? Absolutely not. Yeah. I'm going to engage some content.
Oh God. Well,
what was I saying? Oh yeah, no, I had something else too. Okay. And I have an apology from way back when. Apparently, so Jared told me that when I was talking about the hero's journey and about like one part of the hero's journey is like refuse the call. I can't remember which one it was. It was a while ago though, and I apparently said it was Joseph Conrad, like of Heart of Darkness, but it was Joseph Campbell. So, oh man. God. And I have a master's degree in literature. Like, what have I done? Like, I probably have to call up IUP and just be like, I need to return this master's. I didn't deserve it.
Well, technically they cheated you, right? So
because I didn't know it.
They should have done better.
No, yeah. I wouldn't. I'm not going to speak disparagingly of the place where I got my master's degree. I enjoyed that time immensely.
Well, I think that about does it for the housekeeping, but you know what that leads us into, right?
Let me think. Where are we? McMurder the movie? No, wait. It's
yeah. Good luck with that one.
Spoiler alert.
There's only one. Never mind. We'll
Spoiler get there. Alert. But no, it's probably game time, isn't it?
It's time for the thing that we haven't named yet because we have a really cool name for game time. We'll get there.
Game time.
Again, kind of leaning on you all. We got a good idea out of McMurder of the movie, so I don't want you to do Seymour game of the day. I don't know. We'll find something.
Yeah, let's try take 2 on that one.
Yeah, let's workshop that.
Let's put that one. Let's put that one into the committee. I mean, hey, let's not call up the focus group that picked Tubi's new logo, please, because they're gonna give us something terrible.
So last time we had the question, which movie has the tagline, "Man is the warmest place to hide"? And I think I gave you a hint on the year, and you guessed
blue is the warmest color.
Blue is the one.
No, I guessed The Thing. And yes, you did give me the year 1982. And I guessed John Carpenter's The Thing.
And Stefan, you were correct.
I was. And then I think we just talked about air horn. And then we just talked about The Thing for a while, which is something I could probably do for 1,000 years because I love that movie.
Yeah. I got one here. I think this is going to get you. If you want to talk about, The Thing, I don't want to because I think we're going to definitely cover that.
That's fair. But, you don't think there's enough The Thing to go around?
Well, so yes. And yes and no.
No, I actually don't need to talk about The Thing every single time The Thing comes up.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you're going to get this one, but I think you will. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm the readiest I've ever been. Even though you saying that made me feel less ready, but I'm still pretty ready.
Which 2003 film features a killer tooth fairy?
Oh, Darkness Falls.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Darkness Falls. I never watched it, but I'm almost certain that's what it's called. But yeah, so like the reason that I'm pretty sure it's Darkness Falls is because there was an era of like the early 2000s where I was too scared of all the horror movies at the time, but I was interested in them. So I would just like read all about them and listen to people's opinions on them and stuff like that. But I would actually not engage the material. So that's why I'm like, I'm pretty sure Darkness Falls is the one, and that's just all I have to say about that. Like, I couldn't tell you anything about the movie because I still haven't watched it to this day, because I think in hindsight, a lot of those movies were also bad.
Yeah, I don't really remember this. I do. I mean, I remember it existed. But I don't like, if you told me to give you a beat by beat on this one, I probably couldn't give it to you. But yeah, Darkness Falls, that era was pretty wild. You got some really, they got more like psychological horror movies. Like they weren't like the standard, like creature features or something that was like a slasher. You got like what was that one? Like is it the Tall Man? It was like that Slender Man kind of play. I think that was around that year. I don't know.
No, that would have been way later.
You think? I thought it was like 04 or 05.
Wait, what are you talking about? Talking about the Babadook?
No, there's actually, hold on, give me a second.
Like an actual Slenderman thing? I think that's way too early, because didn't Slenderman come out from like...
It was 2012. It's called The Tall Man. It is 2012, so it was my bad. The actress, Jessica Biel, was like in stuff in the mid 2000s, so my brain just like doesn't really work well. So
yeah, like that era had like The Grudge and The Ring. And like a lot of those J-horror remakes, but then there's other things like, what was the one with was it the one where like what's her face gets like a fake eyeball? Jessica Alba gets like an eyeball replacement. I think that's also a J-horror remake actually. And then it's like a ghost eye.
Yeah.
You know how it is. You get a ghost eye. It's just how it goes. I love movies like that. Like my favorite movies are no movies where like something that that has to happen because of no fault of your own, but then you are like suffering for it. Like times, like I think my favorite ones are the Final Destination movies where like, oh, I survived something and now I'm going to die horribly. It's like, man, I hope the next time that like I'm in a near miss on a car accident, I'll just get out of the car and just like splat myself on a semi, because I'm not going through that, buddy. I mean, I guess you could kind of feel the same way about other things like Jaws. Like no one wanted to get eaten by a shark. They just wanted to enjoy a day at the beach. Like, yeah, but you chose to go to the beach, so you accept the fact that you might get Jawsed.
There was that one weirdo though.
Hmm?
There was that one weirdo that's like, I want to get eaten by a shark.
Oh yeah, that guy who's like, it's like I'm gonna get eaten by a shark.
Get sharked up out here.
Shark me up, baby. And then he was into the water, got eaten.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah.
Surprisingly, Jaws is like, not this one.
Yeah, Josh
like-
is like gross, dude.
He's like, I'm hungry, but I got standards.
Let me go eat this little boy instead. No,
Yeah.
Josh, please don't do that.
This kid's got a future. And it's like, nah, this guy is just a weird sharko.
Such sharkomaniac. You just need to get a shark on. Just
Just needs to get finned.
that's what they call themselves. They're finners.
Yeah.
They need to get their fin on. These are real people
Oh,
online,
man.
I'm sure. Everything exists
Please.
online.
Please, horror family that hangs out with us every other week, please look that up and let us know because we're not. So it's all up to you all.
I'm not gonna get that on my in my cookies and get some weird ads
Yeah.
later.
Can you imagine the list you would be put on if you started looking up that stuff? You're never going to SeaWorld again. I can promise you that.
Do SeaWorlds even exist anymore?
I have no idea. I was actually just making that thought in my head. I'm like, do they even still have SeaWorld? And then they have that mime that's all over TikTok. I think that's Disney, right? Where they torture the animals and make them perform for like food. I don't know.
What? What are you talking about?
What?
There's
Animals don't like to be kept in captivity and made to do weird tricks for food?
Disney has a mine where they put animals to
Mime.
a mime. What? Like a human being is a mime?
There's like
What are you talking about?
I like thinking about a mine. I think that's funnier.
I thought you said a mine.
There's a seal mine. There's a mine underneath Disney.
I don't know if like
And
under the
seals
animal
are
kingdom.
digging. They're digging their way to Georgia so they can leave Florida. That's what's happening.
I don't know if there's like maybe like a I don't know like you know how they say there's like a network of tunnels in like the Magic Kingdom and like legions of stray cats, and I was like maybe the next thing is that underneath the animal kingdom there's like a series of mines. They make the animals do tricks for like I don't know wealthy investors. I didn't know what you were getting at. I thought it was going to be like the animal equivalent of like Hostel. But except, you know, instead of getting murdered by rich tourists in Eastern Europe, they just have to do
Get fish.
tricks in a mine underneath Disney World. All right. Well, I'm sure that the notoriously litigious Walt Disney Company won't sue us for this.
Yeah, really. We'll be fine.
We'll be fine. We're under their radar.
We can take it.
Sure.
Can't take a whole. They can take 100% of nothing. So,
What do you want? Some of my
Anyways.
student loan debt?
yeah, really.
All
It's like I'm
yours.
negative. I'm negative worth here, pal. Go ahead.
Hey, I'm
Do
inching.
me a favor.
I'm inching my way to positive.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not there, but I will be. Maybe.
in 45 years.
Let me think. I think in like 15.
Damn.
Because of
Richie Rich over here.
because of my condo.
Because your fiscal responsibility.
Oh, absolutely not. But because if I had that, I wouldn't have all the student loan debt. I would have made better choices. But that's how it is.
This got dark.
What were we talking about again? Oh yeah, no, it didn't.
Almost as dark as a Nazi ship killing people.
I know we had to level set expectations because we haven't
Jesus.
addressed the jackbooted goose stepping elephant in the room, which is that Death Ship is a Nazi movie. Like the
Well, hold on. It's not a Nazi movie. There's Nazis in the movie, kind of.
ghost Nazis, the worst kind of Nazi. Well, no,
Yeah.
every kind of Nazi is pretty bad. I mean, ghost Nazis are also bad. But yeah, no. So it's a ship that's sailing the Atlantic, piloted by Nazi ghosts, and they do a bunch of evil stuff. So if you are like, I don't want to watch a ghost ship movie with a Nazi ghost ship, I don't blame you. That's why we're here. We do this for you, so you don't have to.
Yeah. We did.
And to anyone
And
that
I-
watched it when we announced it last time and then watched it in between and is now like, wow, these guys are the worst. It's like, yeah, I agree. We should have pre-screened this one, and we should pre-screen more often so we don't end up with
and
this
it's going to
again.
happen.
It's going to
Yeah,
happen from time to time. Because a lot of times before we start recording, we kind of game time it. Like look on Tubi, see something looks cool, and then we're like, yeah, let's do it. And if I had just looked a little more into this, I could have seen the Nazi of it all and avoided it. But you know what? We got through a lot of episodes before Nazis came up. I'll give us that.
We didn't though.
We didn't?
Remember the director that made that documentary about Nazism because of his family?
Oh, you're talking about the director of Howling 2, Your Sister's a Werewolf.
That was like our 3rd episode or 4th episode.
That's true. But we found out the reason for it and it ended up being like good. He was like looking into his family history because of he was from like a Jewish family and stuff. So like actually there was a pure reason for it, not like sensationalist reason like what this movie is, which is why Nazis are bad. So why not have them kill people?
You know, I feel like halfway through, and this is going to be a criticism, so guess what? Preview, folks. I think halfway through this movie, they made a choice because it could have just been a ghost ship, right?
Yeah.
It could have just been a death ship. They didn't
really
have to.
Could have. Yeah, it could have been just.
They
a ghost
did not
ship.
have. There are points in this movie where like there was, if you took out like 4 scenes, this would not be a movie about Nazis. Like hands down. So these people actively chose, and they blew most of their budget on that regalia room because I can't imagine that stuff was cheap. Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get there, but that's one of my main criticisms of this whole film is you just didn't have to. At all points in time, you could have just been like, this is a haunted ship.
I agree with you, but I think that the way that it handles the Nazism, the way that it makes it into not a separate part of the horror, but very actively part of the horror is actually, I think that works in its favor. So we're probably going to be coming at this from different angles.
Right.
And I think that part of that is probably because the filmmakers, as we'll get into, are like a lot of like really like a lot of them come from theater backgrounds. A lot of them have like long careers. And so I think they took certain things for granted about how an audience would react to I kind of told you this before we started, is like these filmmakers are not horror filmmakers. Like they're not out there making like exploitation films for the most part. I think that there's like one person involved who has a big background in exploitation. So I think that they fumble some of the things that would be easier in a less, I'm not sure what the term is I'm thinking of. Like, basically these filmmakers are like quote unquote higher art makers. Like a lot of them have backgrounds in theater. A lot of them are like writing. I guess I don't like that idea because that suggests that horror movies that I love are lower art, but they have their own language. They have their own, shorthand, their own contact. Like everything about it is like, there's a way to say certain things without having to lean into, I don't know, like heavy-handedness. And I feel like this one goes really heavy-handed with it, which we'll get to, because they're really trying to hammer home, this is bad. But like a lot of horror movies are able to do that in like a scene or like a moment or like a line. And I think that that's just part of the problem is they're working in a form that they're not used to for the most part. And that kind of plays against them in this context.
Sure. So like they kind of took like liberties. Like they're like, okay, well they're going to definitely get this. And then we'll make this a main like through line.
Yeah. Yeah. Like here's how to show that the ship is evil. It's like, could have had less scenes of dark corridors and more scenes of just like adding that subtext or adding like adding in a little bit more like there's other ways to have done it. So that was just my thought on it. Is it wasn't as practiced a hand at the genre, and I think that shows. But yeah, I think there's a couple of fun things about this, which we'll get to.
I think that's a perfect segue because we already talked about the people involved in this. So why don't you just start digging into them while we're on the topic?
Oh, dig into them. Gross.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go into the Death Ship crew. Get it? See, because a ship has a crew.
I got it.
Yeah,
that was great.
But yeah, casting crew for Death Ship. All right, to start, we have the director, Alvin Rakoff. Like I said, a lot of like television credits and stage credits, and a lot of the television credits are actually like filmed like plays, it's like stage productions. So that kind of tells you a lot about how he would communicate in a visual medium because of that background. So I focus on his feature film work. So we have The Treasure of San Teresa, World in My Pocket, The Comedy Man, Crossplot, Hoffman, Say Hello to Yesterday, City on Fire, King Solomon's Treasure, Dirty Tricks. And honestly, none of his films were familiar to me whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I just like grabbed a handful of them. Like maybe someone out there's like, oh man, City on Fire, what up? That's my jam.
Yeah, I don't recognize any of this stuff.
Hopefully you can't hear what just happened on mic, by the way. Shit.
You can, it's fine.
You heard that? Here, I'll kick it hard.
I heard that.
All right. There's a
The fuck are you doing?
I have wooden hangers because I'm a fancy boy, and the other day I was
good time, bye.
The other day I was going to an event and I wanted to have a nicer winter jacket on, but most of the winter I've been wearing like a hoodie with like a plaid jacket over it because I don't need to wear like a nice winter jacket because I don't work anywhere anymore. I work from home, so I don't have to go out dressed nice. So I was like, I want one of my nice jackets before I go outside. And it was on a wooden hanger and it fell off and it fell on the ground and it's been there ever since. And while I was recording, I kicked it. So that's what happened.
You know what, for me, that's when I have to kick things, is when I'm in the middle of recording.
What?
So I appreciate
I
that.
didn't intend to kick it until the second time when I want to kick it out of the way
Yeah.
so I don't accidentally little kick it again.
Gotcha.
You're going to cut this out, right? Because this is no.
I don't know.
Anyways.
I mean, so we have two options here. Listen to the weird noise and just ignore it, and then everyone has to not know what it was, or we just talk about it and get it out of the way. I don't know yet. We'll find out.
Did you have anything you wanted to bring up about Alan Rakoff?
Alvin
Rakoff, sorry. No, sorry. I was reading one of my notes because one of my notes was that he gave
likes to be called Alan.
no, he gave Sean Connery his first ever leading role, and he also gave Alan Rickman his first job when he was still a drama student. And like he worked with people like Jeremy Irons, Michael Caine, like early in their careers. So that's why I was looking at Alan Rickman's name and then I was saying Alvin Rakoff. So I transposed their first names. But yeah, so he's worked with a lot of like later to become very famous actors early in their careers.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Mm-hmm. So do you just want to tease me about saying his name wrong? Or do you accept that was a good fact? And it was worth it.
That was a great fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it on the board. Okay, next one. Writers. So we've got a screenplay by John Robbins with a story by Jack Hill and David P. Lewis. So we're going to go through a lot of credits for these guys. And I definitely cherry picked because a lot of people in these movies have like over 100 credits. Like, I don't think the writers do, but like some of the actors, I think like 4 of the actors have that many credits. So
yeah.
So I've definitely had to trim down a lot of things. For John Robbins, even though he was the screenplay writer for this, he was a director on The Munsters, an episode of The Munsters Today, 7 episodes of The Best Things in Life, 5 episodes of Saturday Variety, Big Bad Mouse, an episode of Orson Welles' Great Mysteries, 14 episodes of The Benny Hill Show, something called Hot Resort, and he was also a writer on Hot Resort. So it seemed like he split up his time between directing and writing, a little bit of both, a lot of television show directing. Jack Hill, the first of the 2 story by credits, he actually has more of a bigger career in like exploitation film, but he has like a really positive reputation because there's been a lot of like feminist views taken on a lot of the work that he's done. So for a director, he's done Bloodbath, Spider Baby, House of Evil, The Snake People, The Incredible Invasion, The Big Doll House, The Big Bird Cage, Coffee, Foxy Brown, Switchblade Sisters, and then Sorceress, which I don't know if it's Sorceress or Sorceress. Either way, Sorceress is probably a lesser credit in my opinion on his, if you've ever watched it. I think it has some problems, but it's also kind of funny, like for like an 80s sword and sorcery movie. And he's also a writer on The Terror and City on Fire, which I mentioned City on Fire just because that was also directed by Alvin Rakoff. So
yeah.
Yeah. I think Sorceress might be on Tubi. And let me tell you, if you want to watch something kind of weird and maybe problematic, but also kind of funny, that could be the one. It's like when like all of those sword and sorcery movies always have like some really problematic things, so I can never recommend them outright. But I can say that like, hey, this was pretty weird. If you want to see a winged lion in space fighting an evil witch head, it happens in that movie. So there you go.
Like always, it's like the magic is pretty wild, like how they display magic.
Yes, yeah, it is. And all the sets are just like, we're in a village, and it's mostly just this set. Like we don't have enough money for any more than this set.
There's a lot of pillaging.
Oh yeah, I mean tons of it. A lot of like guards and like really cheap armor. I love those movies. Next up is the latter of the two story by credits, and that's David P. Lewis. And he had one episode of the Planet of the Apes TV show, an episode of Macmillan and Wife, an episode of Columbo. He was also involved in City on Fire. So there you go. All three of these dudes doing City on Fire together. But then his last credit that I could find was as writer on Treachery and Greed on the Planet of the Apes. And then I realized it was just like a 2-part episode of the TV series put into one and then sold off as like a VHS or something. So
it's like it wasn't even like a made for TV movie. It was like a made for home distribution.
I think so. Yeah. Like, don't quote me on that, 'cause I don't have the receipts to prove it, but I saw the one thing. It was like, oh yeah, it was a 2-episode thing of the show. I'm like, oh, okay. I get it now. So it wasn't really a movie. It was just like marketed that way later in order to sell like home video copies, which can be cool because that's how the first 3 episodes of the Gargoyles TV show were marketed. They were like released on VHS as like the movie, and it's like, yeah,
they were bangers.
It absolutely is a movie to me. All right, next up is the music. The music is Ivor Slaney. Not anything I really recognize. Tread Softly, Space Waves, Terror Street, Heat Wave. A bunch of things by the title The Magnificent 6.5. I don't know what that is, but it seems like there's several of them, and he did the music for all of them. And then Terror, and then Prince Neza's Triumph Against the Dragon King. I don't know what that is, but it's had a long title, so maybe somebody out there knows. And that's all I really saw for Ivor Slaney. There was not a lot that I recognized, so I just kind of pulled out a few. If you had anything you wanted to bring up about Ivor.
Yeah, I can't believe you're skipping over the face of Fu Manchu.
Oh, is that him? Well, he was like, was he the composer on that, or was he just music department for that?
I don't know. It says uncredited, so like I don't even know why he's in some of this stuff. It said,
it's a
composer stock music.
Yeah, it was a stock. Yeah, it was a stock thing. That's right. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay. That's why I didn't bring it up, because I was like, well, it's just stock music. You don't get multiple credits for one thing. Because I imagine it was probably pulled from that Prince Neza's Triumph Against the Dragon King. That one seemed like the most likely one to pull music for something called The Face of Fu Manchu. But yeah, I don't know. So let's find out. Let's look it up. Let's stop recording this episode about this movie and just look that up instead.
I would rather do that.
Too bad. Special effects.
Not that I don't want to talk to you all, but
too bad. We're doing special effects.
Too bad.
Yeah, I took all these notes on this. We are doing this episode. You cannot leave. All right. Special effects. There's 2. Michael Albrechtsen and Peter Hughes. For Michael Albertson, you had Island of Terror, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and believe it or not, that's not the first time Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is going to come up in this episode, so buckle up. Zeppelin, The Uncanny, Murder by Decree, Jacob Tutu Meets the Hooded Fang. I don't know what that is, it just had a funny title. And then for Peter Hughes, nothing. This is it. This is his only one. So
this did him in.
Yeah, he did all the special effects for this. He's like, you know what, I'm gonna go be an accountant. I don't actually know what he did. Don't quote me on that. I don't know what he did with his life. All right, well, that's all I had for the crew. Is there anyone that I missed that you thought was a heavy enough hitter that I should have gone back and covered them?
No.
All right. Well then, let's get.
I mean, like, look, like.
You hate this movie so much.
I do, man. I'm trying so hard. I picked this too. I did this to myself.
You cursed us all.
Because like Supernaturals, like I can get through. LeVar Burton, love it. This one, man. Anyways, we'll get there.
Not even George Kennedy could save it for you?
Well, Saul Rubinek could have saved it for me, but that got taken care of quickly.
Whoa.
So
jump ahead.
I'm just
Calm
saying.
down, Kangaroo Jack. Okay, rein it in. Okay.
Yeah.
Starting out the cast, we have Captain Ashland, as played by George Kennedy, who you might know from 188 different credits over the course of a very long career.
Yeah, this guy's like been around.
I know. So like, there's no, like, I could just spend the rest of the day just reading his IMDb, but we're going to do a few heavy hitters. McHale's Navy, which I had to bring up, the TV show, and then the old movie. I guess there's an older movie before the newer movie. So there you go.
Yeah, it was like one of those like MASH, like day in the life kind of like one off.
Gotcha. Okay.
McHale's Navy things.
Well, there you go. Shenandoah, The Dirty Dozen, Cool Hand Luke, Guns of the Magnificent Seven, Dirty Dingus McGee. I don't know what that is, but I saw that title and I'm like writing it down. Airport 1975, Earthquake, Airport 77. You'll notice he has a lot of movies that are like those disaster movies that were all the craze in the 70s. Death on the Nile, but not the new one, the new bad one. Search and Destroy, Virus, Chattanooga Choo Choo, Savage Dawn, The Delta Force, Creep Show 2, which I'm honest with you, like I didn't even recognize him in Creep Show 2 until I read like what segment he was in. And I was like, oh, now I remember him completely. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Demon Warp, Uninvited, which Uninvited is one we will get to eventually. Nightmare at Noon, The Naked Gun, and then of course The Naked Gun 2, and then The Naked Gun 33 and a third. The Terror Within, Brain Dead. You can tell those ones in that era were like horror movies that I'm interested in, which is why I suddenly like, oh, his career took a detour that I enjoyed. Small Soldiers. And then his last credit, which I think was 2 years before his death, was The Gambler in 2014. I want to say he passed away in 2016 at the age of 91, but I didn't actually put that in my notes, so I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, and a lot of his earlier roles too, like a lot of those early credits were just like tons of playing like a tough guy in either like a cop show or a Western show. So like if there was a Western show or a cop show that existed basically from the 60s, from the 50s through the 60s, he was probably in that thing. So there you go, George Kennedy.
So did you catch the Alfred Hitchcock Hour?
I saw he was in it, but then I remember that time that I brought it up and somebody was in the 80s one and not the earlier one. And then I didn't want to embarrass myself again, so I ignored it.
So what was the name of that movie? What was it? Dingus?
Dirty Dingus McGee.
I'm trying to find that one. I'm very interested in Dirty Dingus McGee.
Who isn't? I think everyone who's listening is probably Googling that shit right now.
Oh, man. All right, so who's next?
Man, you really do want to keep things moving. Next up is our hero of sorts, Trevor Marshall.
Oh, shit. Frank Sinatra's in this.
In Dirty Dingus McGee?
His name is Dingus Billy McGee, yeah.
Oh, man, it's him.
Dingus.
He's the Dirty Dingus. I'm less interested now, but I am
All
still...
Blue Eyes is the Dirty Dingus.
Still interested, but less so. Okay, so our next...
Oh, my God. Don't look this movie up.
Why? What happened? What are you talking about? Now you've derailed us. Now you've got to like follow through, or you're just gonna derail us for no reason.
Talking about problematic movies, I'm gonna tell you.
Is it problematic? Oh, geez. Yeah. The 70s, man. What are you gonna do?
I don't know. Hire people of that ethnicity to play roles. I don't know.
Whoa! Oh, it's one of those where someone is putting on like a ethnicity that isn't theirs. That's problematic. Ugh. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I don't know.
Well, if it's like Frank Sinatra playing like a Native American, you know it isn't him.
No, it's not him.
Okay.
No, he's not. He's Dingus. He's Dirty Dingus. He's not,
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess you did say he was Dirty Dingus.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is this streaming anywhere?
It's on Prime. You have to pay for it though.
Oh, absolutely not.
I'd rather legally change my name to Dirty Dingus. Anyways.
All right. Now that we've been derailed successfully by Dirty Dingus McGee, onward to...
You said the words.
Onward to... Yes, I did. Onward to our hero of sorts of the movie, which is Trevor Marshall, as played by Richard Crenna. The Real McCoys. He was in 225 episodes of that as Luke McCoy, if I recall correctly. I really should just write the names of people's roles and not just the name of the thing they were in, so I don't make mistakes, but I'm pretty sure that was who he plays. Marooned. Double Indemnity, but not the 30s movie, like the classic. It's a TV remake from later. Double Indemnity obviously being one of my favorite movies of all time. Let me think. Devil Dog, The Hound of Hell, A Fire in the Sky, Body Heat, First Blood, Rambo First Blood Part 2, and of course Rambo 3. He played Colonel Sam Troutman in the Rambo films, so pretty important character for that.
For sure.
On Wings of Eagles, Internal Affairs, Leviathan, hitting a good one there, buddy. Hot Shots Part 2. He was in JAG as Harmon Rab Sr. So everyone who listens to our show who's a fan of JAG will remember his character. And the only person that is probably my mom. He was in Wrongfully Accused. That was the Leslie Nielsen one that was like a riff on The Fugitive.
Yeah.
And then the last...
That's a good one.
Yes, it is. And then the last one I put down was Murder, She Wrote, A Story to Die For, which was one of the Murder, She Wrote TV movies of the latter era. And that's all I put down for him. He has other credits, but let's be honest, I think that his biggest role and the one he's most known for is Sam Troutman in the Rambo films.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, which he was great in. I think he was, well, at least in First Blood. I actually have never seen First Blood Part 2 or Rambo 3. So my understanding is those movies really, well, no, he's probably still good. But my understanding is that like, in terms of what the theme is of those movies, they lost the plot a little bit. Because isn't Rambo 3 the one where like he goes to Afghanistan and fights with like the Mujahideen against the Russians? And it's like, well, geopolitically, we know that this went a different direction for the region.
Yes, that is that one. And it's pretty wild.
Yeah. So whoopsies. You know, you can't get it all. He's right. Anyways, our next character is Margaret Marshall. And oh no, I misspelled Marshall for her name only in this because there's 2 other Marshalls. I'm like, how did I do that? And how did it not highlight it as misspelled? Anyways, Margaret Marshall is played by Sally Ann Howes. She has a lot of credits. I'm just going to hit the big one really fast. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, where she played Truly Scrumptious. I told you it's not the last time that Chitty Chitty Bang Bang would come up.
It won't be the last. Bam!
Well, no, I mean, that's probably the last time I'll bring up Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But
you just wait.
Okay, sure. Yeah, the classic, who's that writer? The one that did all the James Bond ones that also wrote Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That's why the names are like that. Ian Fleming. Yeah, wrote it. So there you go. Truly Scrumptious. But other stuff for her is Dead of Night, The Life and Adventures of Nicholas Nickleby, Anna Karenina, Brigadoon. And then the last thing I put for was The Hound of the Baskervilles. But I misspelled it and spelled Bakervilles. What was I doing when I was writing my notes for this? My God. All right. That's all I had for Sally Ann Howes. Did you have anything else for Sally Ann?
No, I mean, yeah, I think you
just saw Chitty Chitty Bang and really got in one. Who even cares about it? I think
that it was the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. That's what everyone hears for JAG, Murder, She Wrote, Columbo, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Did I bring up? Oh, I did bring up Columbo. You're right. Yes, I did. I'm really checking off boxes today. All right. Next up is Nick, as played by Nick Mancuso. My favorite credit of his, actually. So it's, I was like, it's like, he had like, what was it? His IMDb profile started out with like tall, dark, and handsome. I'm like, what? Who wrote this? Like his fan club? I mean, that's probably who writes the IMDb biographies. But it's like, okay. But then his like one of his first credits that I recognized was in the Black Christmas, which is widely regarded as like the first slasher. He plays like the creepy voice that's on the phone and through the peephole and stuff like that. It's like creeping on the girls. That was his voice. It's like tall, dark, and handsome, and also creepy and pervy. There you go.
It's like tall, dark, and handsome, and then the sign is definitely not Nick Mancuso.
Yeah, so some for him. I put Nightwing, but it's not that Nightwing. Heartbreakers, Fatal Exposure, Under Siege, and then Under Siege 2, Dark Territory, the one with a train. He was in, Marquis de Sade. Wait, isn't Under Siege? Isn't that the ones where Steven Seagal plays like a kung fu like cook? Like he's like a highly trained military chef.
You're not like getting any. He plays a kung fu, like someone that does kung fu that's not like part of the.
But he's in the Navy, but he's also a chef.
Yeah, he's a cook. He's like a personal cook.
Yeah. but he's also like knows martial arts.
Right.
What are you talking about? That's what he is.
I know, but that's like all of his characters are like,
oh, just
I'm
like
doing this, but I'm also
like
you're
a
not
highly
narrowing
trained
down his movies.
Yeah, yeah, that's
right,
true.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he's like he knows martial arts, and then also he's a gas station attendant. It's like, hey man, why don't you go to Hollywood? I hear that anyone can do that if they have a certain amount of martial arts training.
Yeah. Now he lives in Russia, so.
Oh, well, they want to Wonga. Can't win them all. Where's that with Nick though? Oh yeah, Under Siege 2 Dark Territory. Oh no, then I said Marquis de Sade before I doubled back on the fact that it was Navy Kung Fu chef Steven Seagal. Then next up is The Invader, Twists of Terror, Misbegotten, Eerie Indiana, The Other Dimension, which I think is like a spin-off series or something. Total Recall 2070, which I only bring up because that has come up before and I've never heard of it. So I've only heard of it from doing this show and seeing it in other people's credits. So I'm very curious about it. He did 13 episodes of Call of the Wild, which was a television program version of it, not the poor CGI version of it with like Harrison Ford that came out. But I'm just a sucker for Buck. Anytime you bring up my man Buck, I'm going to talk about him. Call of the Wild, baby, Jack London.
Oh my God.
What?
Did you see what his character's name was in the Total Recall 2070?
No.
Did you not see it, or you don't want to talk about it?
No, I didn't. I don't.
His name is Richard Collector.
You're
I'm not shitting you, dude. Dick Collector.
You're lying to me. You're a lying person. There's no. I'm looking that up. You're absolutely lying.
I'm not Richard Collector.
I have to get back to my IMDb landing page. Okay, there we go. There's no way that's his name. I'm sorry, but I'm going to derail this entire podcast even further because I need to know. That is his name. What is the show?
I don't know.
That's his name?
That's his name.
All right, Richard Collector himself.
Oh, man.
Where was I at? I was talking about Call of the Wild, a much more wholesome thing by comparison. He was in 2 episodes of The Outer Limits, Dead Time Stories Volume 1, Entity, and then a bunch of stuff in recent years that looked kind of low budgety, and I was just like, I'm not going to go through all this stuff and look for something that looks interesting. But I guess maybe if I looked at his character names, I might have seen something cool. Because apparently that's not out of the realm of possibility for him.
Yeah, I don't know why I even looked that up.
I don't either.
But
it's like, did you know? Did you sense it?
No, I've never seen that. I sensed the Dick Collector. That's what it was.
All right, where are we at now? Like, man, I just definitely scrolled down on accident. Okay, next up is Lori, as played by Victoria Bergoini. She was in The Professionals, Doctor's Daughters, Metal Mickey, Nancy Astor. Those were all television programs. I believe she's in an episode each. She was in Stealing Heaven, Ghosts Can't Do It, Ending Up, Chillers, and then a bunch of things that are like Doctor Who involving Shada. Like, I don't know if they're like video games or something. It's about like a prison planet, and she plays a character, the same character throughout like 3 different Doctor Who universe things involving that place. So not a lot in her like filmography, but there you go. Lori. Hopefully you don't die probably the most horrible way possible in this movie. Next up is Sylvia Morgan, as played by Kate Reed. She was in A Dangerous Age, 1+1, The Andromeda Strain, Shoot, Equus, probably the most well-regarded horse movie. Plague, Atlantic City, Death of a Salesman, but a TV version, not like the one with Dustin Hoffman. Control, but not the video game. Friday the 13th, the series, an episode of that. Deceived, Teamster Boss, the Jackie Presser story. She had a really long career, so she had tons of credits. I just whittled it down to some interesting stuff. So probably the most interesting ones to me were The Andromeda Strain and Equus. And Friday the 13th, obviously. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Anything you wanted to add for Kate Reed?
Nah, you nailed it with the horse stuff. That's what I wanted to cover.
What is
I didn't want
Equus
to talk about,
exactly? Because it's like,
I didn't want to talk about Wojak or Columbo, none of that stuff.
She was in Columbo, yeah.
I don't know what Equus is, and I really don't know if I want to know.
It's like it was like based off a play. It's like a psychological drama thing. I don't think it actually involves a horse, but I think Equus means horse. But it's like the people in it.
A psychiatrist attempts to uncover a troubled stable boy's disturbing obsession with horses.
Yeah, but it's like about people, not about horses. It's not like an actual horse movie, like, I don't know, like Seabiscuit. It's like the horse isn't the focus, humans are. That's what I meant by that. Like if someone's a fan of, like, I don't know, dogs, I'll be like, yeah, watch Beethoven, that thing rules. I won't say go watch, like, you know, something that doesn't involve dogs, but like has a name that sounds like it does. Like Dogtooth. I wouldn't tell them to watch that. Well, first of all, that's a very disturbing movie. I wouldn't tell anyone to watch that. But at the same time, like, if someone really loves dogs, just because it says Dogtooth in the name, that doesn't mean it involves dogs. It's a very troubling movie. Do not watch it. And just because Beethoven has the name of a famous composer and it's actually about totally cool dog, you should watch that.
So we're going to just talk about how your mind went to Dogtooth. We're just going to move on.
Do you want to?
No, not at all.
Do you know what that movie is?
Please don't watch it, audience.
You do not watch it.
I've never seen it, so I won't. But anywho,
I don't know. I like that director is the one who directed that new one with what's her name? Emma Stone. Poor Things. Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah.
All of his movies are pretty disturbing, and I think I've seen most. I haven't seen Poor Things yet, but I've seen, I think, most of his other movies.
Yeah, he's definitely got a style.
Weird.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So there you go. Oh yeah, that was Equus that we went on that tangent from. Okay, next up is Robin Marshall, the daughter, as played by Jennifer McKinney. She was in Running, Silence of the North, and then Dangerous Proposition. Another misspelling in my notes. I put
Dangerous Preposition.
Dangerous Preposition.
That's better. I like that better.
What was it? Was it of?
Yeah, I was going to say.
It had to have been of.
Did they end a sentence in the prepositional phrase?
Definitely the most important preposition, because it often changes the entire sentence. Oh, okay. All right. Good work. My spelling in my notes this time around. I can't believe I read it too. Ugh. All right. Then the son is Ben Marshall, otherwise known as Small Bladder Ben. It's played by Danny Higham. He was in Mom, the Wolfman and Me, Improper Channels, a couple episodes of The Littlest Hobo, Bedroom Eyes, Love It Steak, and then his most recent credit was one episode of Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, and that was about it for him. So there you go, Danny Higham, Ben himself. And now
I want to watch this Littlest Hobo show.
Yeah, what is that? What I don't know.
It's literally, the tagline is The Wandering Adventures of an Intelligent German Shepherd Dog.
What?
So it's like,
how's he a hobo? Is he like homeless?
I don't know. He's the littlest hobo, I guess. But apparently this is like pre-Wishbone kind of level.
Love that. Well, speaking of the Littlest Hobo, I say that because the next actor was also in an episode of the Littlest Hobo, because I try to draw those through lines in my notes. We have Jackie, as played by Saul Rubinek, which we brought up Saul Rubinek earlier. And he was in so many things. Like, this dude's basically been in everything I like. If it's a TV show, he's like in an episode or two of it. Yeah. Sanctuary of Fear, an episode of Littlest Hobo, an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. He was in Unforgiven, which you had just texted me about the other day.
Well, that's why it was in.
What was that?
I watched it because of, like, I'm like, oh, like, hey.
I don't see something this guy's in that he has more
screen
time.
Yeah, Saul Rubinek.
Saul Rubinek have more screen time in this. True Romance, Death Wish, The Face of Death, Toe Tags, 2 episodes of The Outer Limits, Rush Hour 2, in my opinion, the best of the Rush Hours, 15 episodes of Frasier, and starring Pancho Villa as himself, an episode of Masters of Horror, an episode of Psych, 3 episodes of Leverage, most episodes of Warehouse 13, which is a underrated show, and I love it, and basically any related stuff, because he's a main character in Warehouse 13. If you haven't watched Warehouse 13, do it. He's in The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, a bunch of episodes of Hunters, that Amazon Prime series about like hunting Nazis, Nazi survivors or whatever, like the ones who fled. And then a couple episodes of A Marvelous Mrs. Maisel And yeah, so Saul Rubinek is in a lot of stuff, and way more than that. He might actually be giving our main man George Kennedy a run for his money, because he's in so many things.
Yeah, he's still going.
And there were a couple other credits in the IMDb for like, the random sailor who gets strangled and stuff like that. Like, I didn't go for every single person, just the main characters and the main like deaths, as I always do. But there was one other person with a credit.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. And it was the first time I've ever seen this person listed as a credit. And I don't know why they did it, but it was Adolf Hitler as himself. Wow. So, okay, apparently I think that the reason is because the movie that was playing at one point in this with Hitler in it, I think it's Triumph of the Will. I'm not sure, but it looks like it is. And because that movie was actually like given like international distribution and was like a real movie, that might be why IMDb has to give Adolf Hitler like actual credit. I don't know. Like, someone look into this, because I've never seen that in my life. But I've also not watched a lot of things with actual Hitler in it. So it's usually like someone portraying him or talking about him or whatever, like it's either like what Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade, or it's Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. Like, most depictions of Hitler are fictionalized. So I don't know how that happened.
Like, why credit him? Like, it's like he has an estate or anything. Like, he fucking better not have an estate. That's actually a better question. Is what, like, because like that's kind of fucked up.
He doesn't. I think that the only surviving relatives that he even had like agreed to have no more kids in order to end their line. And it wasn't even like siblings. It was like cousins or something, maybe. Or it might have been like children of siblings, like nephews or something. But when they found out, they ended. So like there's no one that would claim it. So yeah, I have no idea why they gave him credit on that, but very weird. First time I've ever seen it. So there you go.
Well, if you click on his page, I mean, there's tons of shit.
What? I didn't click on his page.
I'm like, I did. I'm like, you know what? I got to find out like what, why is he getting credited with all this shit? And he's got like historical, historical films and stuff. But then there's like older films from the 30s that he played himself in. It's fucking crazy. It's just.
Well, yeah, the Lenny Riefenstahl ones, like the one Triumph of the Will, I'm almost certain that was the one that was playing in this movie. Yeah, because it's the most famous one, like, for many reasons. So I'm pretty sure it was that. But yeah, I guess, yeah, he does have a lot of stuff that's like newsreels or like propaganda films. Man, that's wild.
I know.
Oh, I forgot about Olympia. That was another Lenny Riefenstahl one. So yeah, okay. There you go.
Anyways.
All right. Well, let's pivot hard away from Hitler, and now it's time for the plot description. It went dubstep for some reason. Why did that happen?
Oh no.
What?
Hey, this might be the episode we do a dubstep soundtrack.
Well, what else are you going to do? Like, there's no music in this, and I'm like, this music needs to be enshrined in this episode.
Well, there's almost no music in this. Except for the shitty, like, hey, we're like, you know what? This sounded like they ripped the soundtrack from Supernaturals and put it over this movie.
I just felt like a generic orchestral score to me. Like, it was really light. It had a very light touch to it, for sure. Yeah,
pretty light touch for the Death Ship. Like, great,
I know. I could have
guys.
used like a really cool like. Well, that's the thing. Is like, if you're going to do like a Nazi monster ship, like, lean into something like kind of evil and German sounding. Like, give me some like Wagnerian stuff. Give me heavy, dark music, but instead it's just like nothing.
Give me flutes.
Give me these Sieberflaute. Yeah.
Are those nuts?
No, isn't that it's Zauberflöte? How's it pronounced?
Dude, you passed up on a very good joke.
What was it?
You said give me D's and you said flute in German. You could have said nuts.
I don't know if I know how to say nuts in German. Is it Nuss? It might be Nuss.
I think we have 2 German listeners, so let us know.
I think
And sorry for this.
it's Nuss is singular. I think it's Nuss is plural.
So D's nooses.
I mean, they have declensional. It's a more complicated language than ours. All right. Opening. It's yellow letters in a sort of Gothic font, and it actually kind of bothered me that I couldn't recognize this font. So I looked it up, and I think that it's meant to be like a English version of a German font called Fraktur, which is what German Bibles are written in. It's like this Gothic looking font. I think that's what they're going for with that. And you could also see it in this movie later because like there's a German Bible in it. Yeah, the music is sort of like haunting and subdued, but also like not really there until you get a heavy-handed horn when the evil plain black freighter starts coming into the scene. A 40s style cargo ship kind of thing, like, you know, it's the death ship, you know, it's evil. What can you do? But then it turns out that horn is is diegetic. Like people actually hear that. So it wasn't part of the music. So my bad. I guess there wasn't a lot of music going on.
Good job.
So here we go. Here's the start of a bunch of stuff that I hate. So there's a bunch of shots of the boat from the outside. It's like, oh, look, that's an evil ship. Then there's some of like all of like the gauges and like the throttle and all that stuff in the ship. It's like, oh, look, all these things are operating themselves, or you just don't see who's operating them. Either way, it's happening. But then the ship gets near like a cruise ship, and there's like a contrast between them because the black freighter is totally dark. There's no lights or anything. But the cruise ship is lit up. They're partying, baby. They're out on a boat on the ocean. They're on a boat. And then then on the ghost ship, the death ship. I keep calling it a ghost ship, but it's like Ghost Ship is a different movie.
This is problematic because like I think we need to get this out of the way.
Sure.
There are dead on the ship. There are also ghosts on the ship. I would say the ghosts are more prevalent than the dead.
I don't know, man. Them dead are everywhere in some places though.
But they don't like get up. Like they're not like doing anything.
No, they just make spooky noises that I'm pretty sure is just for effect and it's not actually happening.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So I'll call it a ghost ship. I'll probably call it the ghost freighter. I think I call it my notes most of the time. I change a few times throughout my notes, so we'll find out. Yeah. So then suddenly you get like a German voice over like an intercom. And then suddenly all of the machinery in the ship starts running on its own. How scary. Machinery, Shane, working on its own. And then you see like
we did talk about this.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't have any context for like, this isn't that scary for me. Stop establishing the engine works. Like, that doesn't scare me. So they did have the throttle, and I had like a lot of questions about the throttle. And this is kind of why my notes are like really like bad this time, because I spent a lot of time looking up German nautical stuff, because the throttle, they put it on langsam, which means slow, and then they show the ship speeding up. I'm like, it's gotta mean something else. And then there was like voraus, which means advance. But then there was Achseraus or Achveraus, which I think means aid advance, which does that mean reverse? I don't know. I don't know what it means. So I tried to Google like what like German nautical terms were, and I couldn't find a good resource, and I just like looked for it way too long. But I was like, why would langsam make them go faster? Like maybe there's a reason for that. And then at one point it goes down to halb, which is half. It's like half speed. So there's that slow half, and then like one of them is fast, but it isn't schnell. That's for damn sure, because I would have recognized that. I don't know. Understand how German nautical stuff works. At this point, it's too late. It's too late for me to join the German Navy and find out. So here we are. Sorry, that really bothered me a lot. So much so that we're 30 seconds into this movie. Also, there's a POV shot of someone running through the halls of the ship, which I think is just like a red herring because it's a ghost ship. There's no one in there. It's just like, or it's just to show us like a preview of where most of the movie's gonna take place is in narrow corridors.
Or both.
So yeah, on the cruise ship, the captain, Ashland, informs a helmsman that he's off course by 2 degrees. It's like, okay, lighten up, bro. Then speaking to the guy that's going to be the next captain, which we'll come to learn is Marshall, he says that he'll need to watch them all the time because they'll become sloppy. Very sloppy. And I'm like, why did he say it that way the second time? Yeah, so Marshall, though, is kind of tired of Ashland being a dick to the crew. So he's like, hey, how about we go join the party? And Ashland is like, I became a captain to take care of a ship, not to be a party host. And he's like, damn the passengers. It's like, dude, you're a captain of a cruise ship. Like, most of your job is going to be like schmoozing with the guests. Like the crew can take care of a lot of this. It's very funny. Well, maybe not most of your job. I guess I don't know much about what a, captain of a cruise ship actually does, but I assume that a big part of the job description is like party host, like being a, person with people hanging out with them, But it seems that based on the context of the conversation, that in 3 days, that'll be the end of this voyage. Marshall will be taking over as the ship's new captain. What is it? Ashland informs the helmsman, I think, to check their... No, it's not the helmsman. It's a different guy on the bridge. And I don't know enough about positions on the bridge to tell you what that person's position is exactly. But he tells him to check their position frequently and advises that... like a tour guy, like somebody who seems like he's like a social host who's there waiting for him and Marshall to go to the party. It's like, I'm not going to go to the over 50 party tomorrow. I was like, well, you're not, because your ship is going to be sunk by a ghost ship. But then he advises Marshall that...
Joke's on you.
Yeah, joke's on you, buddy. Yeah, no one's going to that party. Unless it's held at the bottom of the sea. Oh! Then Marshall... he says to Marshall, it's like, you could go since you're a good conversationalist. And Marshall kind of throws a dig at him. He's like, depends on who I'm talking to. It's like, oh, shit. He's saying you suck, Captain. So yeah, anyways, they leave and go to the party. Whenever Marshall and Ashland depart, one of the crewmen is like, bastard. And then the helmsman is like, hey, glad this is his last trip. So it's like, clearly the crew hate him. He just sucks. Down into a ballroom. There's some kind of like sax heavy music playing during a costume party. A guy that we'll later learn is Nick. You can't tell because he's wearing like an ape mask. Probably, I think it's a chimpanzee mask. He arrives with a woman that we'll later learn is Lori. And they greet Margaret, Marshall's wife, and their children. But, Lori beckons Nick to go to the dance floor. So they go off and dance. Because he, I put in my notes as a gorilla mask, but I thought it was a chimpanzee mask. I don't know. I think it's a chimpanzee mask. No one watch this movie and find out. Don't worry about it. The Marshall children, Robin and Ben, taunt each other about the fact that Ben has to go to bed because he can't stay up late like Robin can because she's a whole year older than him or something. They seem like they're very close in age. Margaret, quiets them down because she knows that the captain is a dick and will be pissed if kids are fighting in front of him. The band pauses, at which point the MC of the evening, who we'll later learn is Jackie, he's out there telling some jokes and like saying like, I hope everyone's having fun, all that stuff. Whatever. It's just to establish that he's funny because he's not going to get a lot of screen time later. Back on the German boat. We see the throttle moving some more again. And a bunch more scenes of machinery again. Guess what, Shane? That's going to happen a lot. We're going to see long shots of machinery operating. It's like, what is this, a documentary? But then they forgot to put in the Richard Attenborough, give me a narration. The theater won't be seated when we see shots of shots of the machinery. But also, there's a lot of times where you see like that same shot of the ship moving through water. And apparently part of why that happened is because they're using an actual old ship and it like died. So they couldn't use it to run anymore. So that's why they use often the same shot of the ship moving. And other times they just simulate it with like camera effects.
Okay, that makes so much sense. Okay. That's actually pretty clever.
Yes, yeah. Because there's later times where it's like, okay, they're like rushing to get off this boat, but it's like not moving. Like you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's why.
Well, like technically, isn't like the lifeboat a Nazi too?
The lifeboat on the German ship.
Yeah.
Well, I don't. I don't know that it's got a personality of its own, but it is under the influence and part of the mechanisms of the Nazi.
And the rest of it didn't.
But
so it's like just that one piece of equipment wasn't racist.
I don't know that
you didn't think about that at all. Like that bothered me the whole movie.
What
like I thought the boat was gonna kill them. I thought the rowboat was gonna sink itself and kill them.
Well, that wasn't. Oh, you missed something then, because that wasn't a Nazi. That raft was not a Nazi one.
No, like when it dropped, like they had the scene where they dropped the life raft.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to get in it and the boat was going to kill. Like that was.
Oh, well, they didn't go down there though. They didn't get to it.
Correct. I know. That's what I'm saying. But sorry, I should have been more clear. My bad.
Because I don't think it's the.
I was trying to make a funny joke that everything on that ship is tainted.
I don't think that it's like the parts of the boat that kill you. I think it's the ghosts that control the parts of the boat that kill you.
We don't know.
Because I don't think that like when at one point when one dude gets like knocked out by like a like one of the crane hooks, I don't think it was the crane hook that was like, I hate Jews, I'm gonna hurt you. I think it was the crane hook was controlled by a ghost who hates them. Like that's why I don't think that it's the crane hook itself that is evil. I think it's the ghost.
It wasn't called the Death Crew. It was called the Death Ship. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I that wasn't what I took out of it, but you know what? It's film, baby. Take whatever you want from it, I guess. Anyways, back at the ballroom of the movie, Ashland and Marshall arrive to the ballroom. To the cheers of the crowd, Jackie the MC greets them as they arrive and makes an okay joke about how the journey was particularly smooth, especially over the land sections. I was like, okay, dude, like this captain is not the one to make jokes about. But yeah, then Jackie asks the captain to stand up and take a bow. Ashland, he's pissed. He hates this, but he does opt to stand up and at least do a turn. And then when he sits down, he just complains about like all of this time as a captain, and he's just the straight man for a comedian. And it's like, dude, how did you get this job? You're a miserable dude. Marshall wonders aloud to Margaret about what jokes they'll make about him. And she makes a rookie move of saying, they won't joke about you because you're rarely out of uniform or whatever. And it's like, oh, it seems like you might be implying that Ashland is shirking his duties and he's not going to take that lying down. And he might later get corrupted by evil ghosts. Let's find out. Smash cut to Laurie making out with Nick while he's still in the ape mask, which is a gross scene. Fortunately, he does remove it to make the scene slightly less awkward. It's still awkward because watching people make out in a movie, it's like, do we have better things to do? Because apparently they're hooking up, Shane. That's how we know.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, that's what that was. Quick cut to the German ship moving through the water again, in case you forgot. Back to the cruise ship. The crew on the bridge catch the approach of the ghost ship on collision course via sonar. So,
hey, was that German ship manned at any point?
No. But they're going to try to call him on the phone anyway. In the ballroom. See, these are the kind of quick cuts you can expect from this movie. In the ballroom, a piece of cake is delivered to Ashland. Little Ben, the son of the two Marshall children, asks if he can have it. And he does say please, to his credit. Like, it is kind of presumptuous, but at least he's polite. But Ashland just, like, pushes it away from the kid, like, and asks if it's, like, past his bedtime. It's like, man, dude. And Margaret kind of, like, takes it as like, oh, Ben, that was so rude. How dare you be so rude? Robin, take Ben and put him to bed. And as he's leaving, like, Ben, showing that he's not, like, a total dickhead kid. He's just, like, apologizes to the captain. And he, like, pinches his cheek in, like, a mean way. Like, it was like, oh, is this supposed to be affectionate or is this supposed to be mean? I can't tell. Because everything else this captain does is pretty mean.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah. Then the comedian Jackie takes a moment to explain that they're coming to the end of the voyage, but we already had that established earlier, so I don't know why I need to reiterate it. I guess it's just to show that he is like the MC of the evening, so the crowd like goes, oh, but he's like, we'll make the most of the rest, and like, yay! It's like, all right, good work, you know how to do crowd work, buddy. Ashland, being the continual sourpuss, tells Marshall perhaps he'll get used to this, but I never did. Cruising in a circle forever, having dinner with people from Akron or Toronto, just so they can say they had dinner with the captain. That's the line he actually says. So yeah, Marshall and Margaret share a look. It seems like they've been dealing with Ashland being like this probably the entire time. Because I feel like this is his entire personality. Back to Ben and Robin. They're in the hallway. Ben's excited for their dad to be the captain so he can have all the cake he wants. And then he runs away and Robin chases him. Cut to Black Ghost Freighter. Throttle's moving again. More machinery engine stuff, Shane. In case you forgot. The engine, it's out there. Shane, it's out there.
Forget.
It's doing engine.
I forgot.
Yeah, well, thank God that we have establishing shots of that engine. Damn it. You'll forget.
We should have counted.
Oh my God, dude. No way. Zero chance. 0% chance. Zero chance. So Ben, as he's getting into bed, he then hops down because he's got to go. And Robin says, you've just been. And I thought it was funny because she says been the way that I say it every time I say I'm the readiest I've ever been. But he's like, I got to go again. And then he says women. I was like, oh, okay. So we're doing like a gender thing now? Like, what the hell's happening? But the important thing is it establishes that Ben has to pee a lot. Like, someone get this kid checked out for like a bladder infection. What's going on? Back on the bridge, the crew members are watching the sonar and they come to the conclusion that the ship is definitely on a deliberate collision course. This is going down, baby. Ashland, back at the party, is talking to a lady dressed as a pilgrim, and it's a very awkward conversation where she talks about how she was supposed to go on this cruise with her husband, but when God calls, you answer. And the captain's like, pardon? It's like, oh, he died, but I decided to come anyway because that's what he would want. It's like, what? What is this conversation? Of course, we'll later learn that that's Sylvia, who's going to be a character who makes it to the Ghost Freighter. So it was important that we met her there, I guess. Fortunately, Ashland is saved by the crew because a crewman is beckoning him from across the room. So he's like, oh, I'm out of here. This conversation's weird. And I like it because it still tries to make it seem like Ashland is the bad one here. I'm like, this lady is oversharing and like, it's just a weird conversation. I wouldn't want to be doing it. Speaking of awkward, we get a scene of Nick and Lori. They're in bed now, having presumably had intercourse. And they're talking about how soon she'll be going away. Because I don't know if I established it. Nick is part of the crew. He was wearing a suit from the crew. I gather that he's probably going to be the like first mate of Marshall when he's captain. And that right now he's like, second or whatever, however you do it on the cruise ship. So yeah, Lori's going to be leaving whenever they get to the end of the ship. And then, she says he needs to forget about her. And he's like, oh, I will. And then she's like, oh, you could have lied about it. He's like, whatever. It's like, all right. It seems like a really solid, like vacation hookup. That's how it goes. Right. Luckily we get another cut to the ghost ship. One of the only times that I'm excited about it because I did not enjoy that situation. But back to the bridge. These rapid cuts, dude. We're only like 2 pages in. So yeah, luckily we get another cut to. Oh no, I already said luckily. We get a cut to Ashland on the bridge with the crew, and he's telling them to alter. He says, "Signal the other ship to alter course." They're like, "We did that. They didn't answer us." He says, "All right, well then you turn turn X number of degrees in a direction. I don't remember. Whatever. It doesn't matter because the collision happens. We get a bunch of quick cuts to guests. Some of them that we knew, some that we don't. Like as it's flooding and like stuff's coming in, a piano falls, a bunch of chaos is happening. People are dying. Ghost Freighter attack. That's how it goes. A scene in the engine room of the engine room guys like, we got to get out of here. So they're like moving up to the top. All your basic 70s disaster movie scenes of the flooding and everything. If you've seen one, you've seen them all. Well, except Avalanche. That one, I guess, because it was snow. There wasn't a lot of water.
You see one, you've seen them all, except for Avalanche.
Except for Avalanche. Yeah, so cut to apparently later, because it's daytime. We see some of the survivors on like a piece of wreckage. There's just some long scenes of them suffering in the sunlight as they're adrift. And I tried to write down who they were. I said, we got Marshall, we got Margaret, we got the kids, we got Jackie, the stand-up comic, we got Lori, we got Nick. I actually didn't see Sylvia there, but she is there, as we'll find out later. Then suddenly Robin, the little girl, she's frightened by something white in the water. It's the captain, completely submerged underwater. Should be dead. I don't understand. I guess he's part Aquaman. So yeah, Nick, Jackie, and Marshall like pull him up, and then, you know, never understand how he was able to survive completely submerged. In the movie, will never tell us that, unless it's to imply that now he's dead and he'll become the ghost captain of the ghost ship. Except he's not, because he's still mortal in that part. And also, there's actually a goof, because when I was counting the people on the boat in the first scene, when he showed them on that wreckage, not on the boat, the captain was there. So it was,
oh really?
Yeah, he's there. So whoops, shouldn't have used that shot. But then one of probably the funniest scenes of the entire movie is that we get a scene of everyone just on the raft, like sleeping or whatever, and then suddenly the ghost ship is like right behind them. It's like, very sneaky, sir. Like no one noticed in like the wide expanse of the ocean, like that this giant boat was right behind them. Now, granted, it's anchors down, like it's not moving, but like you can't tell me no one looked in that direction in the entire time it took to drift towards it, unless it was ghosts, Shane.
I think that's what it was.
It probably was ghosts. If it doesn't make sense, it was probably ghosts.
Definitely not deaths.
Definitely not deaths. This should have been called Ghost Ship.
I agree with you. That's like my whole problem, I think.
Your whole problem?
No, it's not. There's
you have other problems. Anyways, no time to think about it, because you know, they're kind of yelling ahoy to the ship and everything. And this is one of those like kind of fake out scenes, like a window opens up, which suggests someone's there, but it's probably just a ghost opening the window. But it's like, does a ghost need to open a window to look out the window? I don't know. I don't understand ghosts. I think it's just like red herring to like make us think that it might not be a ghost ship, even though I assume we all knew it was a ghost ship going in. But then in order to show us that there in fact weren't people, we see some more long shots of empty, darkened corridors. Don't worry, we'll get more. As they paddle around the ship, they find an old rickety looking like metal staircase on the side. Marshall sends his boy Nick up to investigate. You know, Nick goes up, walks around shouting if anyone's there. He goes to one of the decks. No one's there because there's a spooky ghost freighter, so obviously no one will be there. We get another window that opens, and it seems like it's like looking at him. But again, I think it's just ghost stuff. I just don't understand why they sometimes like feel the need to open things.
Right.
Or use candy to their advantage, as we'll find later. But Nick advises the group that no one is there, and thus the survivors begin to head up the stairs one at a time. As soon as he gets there, Ben like runs off. So Robin's next. So as soon as Robin gets there, Nick's like, yo, go check out what Ben's going on. Guess what Ben's got going on, Shane?
What's Ben got
He's
going
peeing.
on? Damn.
It's his personality. It's pee. So yeah, he ran off to pee. He's like, I had to go. But he's also peeing on the deck. It's like, dude, there's an entire ocean. Pee off the deck. Whatever. Yeah, but like as everyone else gets up the stairs, Marshall summons Nick to come down and help him out with Captain Ashland. And, you know, they each grab one end, you know, one of the shoulders, one of the legs, and they work to carry him up the rickety staircase. A ghost door opens out of frame. Again, like, I don't understand why they do these ghost things that they can't see and we can, especially knowing. Oh, wait, or do the ghosts need to open doors? That would be funny. Man, I would hate to be a ghost that has to open doors. Like, if I can't go through
Especially
doors, then I'm done. What?
Especially on that boat, there's so many doors.
There's so many doors, dude. Well, that's probably why they leave so many of them open.
Right.
Except the ones they need to open off screen for the audience to be spooked by.
Right. Or to slam menacingly.
Oh yeah, you gotta slam those doors menacingly, bro. What else are you gonna do? Where were we? As they go. Oh yeah. So the ghost door opens, and then as they're going up the staircase, suddenly we cut to a part of the engine steaming. which somehow also means that the stairs break and fall, and all three of them go into the water. Marshall, Nick, and Ashland. Luckily, Lori, instead of just sitting there staring disinterestedly at everyone in the water like everyone else did, she runs and finds a ladder, like one of those like rope ladders, and throws it over the side. Literally everyone else is staring passively at like everyone else in the water, like, oh no, these guys are gonna drown. Marshall and Nick manage to attach a rope to the captain, and then Nick goes up the ladder, presumably to pull the captain up. But the engine does another thing again where it like starts up, and this time that startup thing meant that it shoots oil juice out the sides all over Nick and the captain and Marshall, which is so weird considering how this ship's relationship with Ashland is later, like why they would be trying to stop him from getting on the boat. It doesn't make any sense. But it's a Nazi ship, man. They can do whatever they want. The captain, though, despite them tying a rope around him, he seems to have figured out how to climb up the ladder, and we get to watch as George Kennedy's stunt double climbs up the ladder. And you can tell it's a stunt double because he has a full head of hair, and George Kennedy does not. It's like, could have got a better wig. That's fine. Yeah, what is it? Once they all get their way to the top, the engineering, whatever engine stuff down there sputters again, and the oil stops this time. So yeah, Marshall, Nick, they get Ashland settled on the deck. Then Marshall sends Nick to go look for someone on watch. Like, so I guess go check some of the other decks to see if anyone's there. Nick moves up to the other decks, and he gets a vision of a man caught in a net in like the hold below.
Yeah.
And that is a vision of his own death. Spoiler alert. And it's not the first time we see a vision, but also like they're very inconsistent, so don't get used to it. What is it? As everyone is sort of settling in, a crane starts to come alive all on its own. Can't be menacing at all. The stand-up comedian Jackie gets up on deck and he's like, oh, this ain't so bad. We're out of the water. We can get some shuffleboard. We can get a tan. So as he's trying to make light of everything, suddenly he's grabbed by the crane, which like hooks him with like a hook and some kind of cable, and then grabs him, pulls him up, and swings him out over the water. Then it like goes and like dunks his head in the water and like seemingly trying to drown him. That doesn't seem to work. So it goes to lift him up again, and Marshall's trying to get him to take his hand, but it takes him all the way up to the very top of the crane winch. And then the ship brings up its anchor, and the engines start up again, and then it drops Jackie into the ocean. And this is where it's like the ship isn't really moving, but they've been trying to simulate that it's moving. And the idea is that he's getting like pulled under the ship by the water and being drowned. And it's like, man, that ship went straight for Jackie. I wonder why, Shane.
Why?
Why would it drown a character played by Saul Rubinek that's very Jewish coded almost immediately?
Let me guess.
Yes, it's anti-Semitism is what the movie was driving at. To their credit, they don't beat the head over it, but just because I know about Saul Rubinek's like background and that he's often involved in like stuff where he plays a Jewish man, like this was a choice. They made this choice deliberately, and it was pretty interesting. It's probably one of the more interesting things that this ship will do, because it usually doesn't make any sense. This is one of the only times that it's like, oh, this tracks for like the morality or lack thereof of this ship, is that it would attack a Jewish stand-up comedian immediately and kill him. Okay,
so we're back on the ship as the racist, not the ghost.
It wasn't the you saw the levers get pulled.
Your words, dude.
We saw that. Well, the ship. I meant the ship as in the crew of the ship.
Oh, okay.
Have you never heard people refer to like?
No, I've never heard of people refer to a Nazi ghost ship ever.
Well, no, but like people refer to a ship when they're talking about the ship, they're talking about the crew of the ship. They're not talking about the actual ship.
Okay.
Like if I talk about the Black Pearl, I'm not talking about the actual boat. I'm talking about the crew thereof.
Well, then if you needed to talk about the Black Pearl, how do you do that?
I don't know anything about nautical science, so I wouldn't talk about that.
How convenient.
So you think that the crane was evil?
I think the whole boat's evil.
I don't think the whole boat is evil. I think the boat is controlled by evil. Well, you know what?
The motor, when they go down the engine room.
The fact that the engine room was, the fact that the engine room was out of fuel and still operating. Yeah, maybe this whole boat is evil. No, never mind. But I still think the lifeboats were good. I don't think they wanted to be evil. I think that's why they got ditched. So we'll get there. Yeah. So, anyways, no time to mourn. Well, there's a little bit of time. One of the kids is definitely crying. The Marshall family are moving through the corridors of the ship. Don't worry, it's not the last time this will happen. They find lighting still works. Weird, right? The kids are crying. Nick, meanwhile, is up on one of the upper decks and finds a wooden steering wheel at the top deck. And I put in my notes, is that a thing? Because later on we see that there is an actual wheelhouse, presumably on the bridge. Is there like a separate wheel on a deck on ships from that era? I don't feel like there would be. That wouldn't make any sense.
I don't think so. And then aren't the ones now just for show so people feel cool?
Yeah. Like there's sometimes they'll put a show wheel in. I don't think they do that for like actual freighters though, because like you don't usually have passengers on those. So like, yeah, I have no idea like why there's a separate wheel up there. It doesn't make any sense, but don't worry about it. There's other things about this boat that don't make any sense either. Like the fact that in order to establish that people haven't been around for a while, they put spider webs everywhere. Let me tell you a secret about spiders, Shane. They're not ghosts. They have to eat. So if you are on the ocean for like 40 years, guess what?
Like water spiders.
they die. Like I actually saw it in the goofs. They're like, the spiders would have died out long before and there would be no webs. It's like, oh, okay. That's weird that someone thought about that.
Unless they're Nazi spiders.
Oh no. It was no.
Maybe they're controlling everything. They're getting on
It
people's
was
skin.
evil Nazi spiders all along.
That would have been a better plot line than what happened.
That would have been pretty cool. I would like to see that. So, but that was when Marshall like went into the crew quarters. But don't worry, there's gonna be many times where the passage of time is signaled by spider webs. Makes no sense. Suddenly, this is a weird scene because then suddenly like the kids aren't with the Marshalls anymore. They are coming from upstairs, joined by like the rest of the people, like Sylvia and Lori. So they all come down. Marshall then opens up a bathroom area. He's very unimpressed by it. I'm like, hey, dude, it's an old derelict ship. What do you expect? Additional impossible spider webs. I have a lot of times when I put down the impossible spider webs. Suddenly the light goes out in the hallway and everyone panics, but like, then not really. They're just like, oh, let's just keep going forward. It's like, oh, okay. It's like, what was the point of that panic then? That initial panic. Ashland, alone on deck, is being spoken to by a ghostly German voice. I don't know a ton of German, but from what I can tell, it was asking if he could hear it, if he could hear the voice. Like, can you hear me? And then it was telling him that this is his new ship, his new command, I think. It was trying to explain to him that it's his now. It's his ship. But like I said, I'm not great at German. There's just a few phrases that I recognize. And I think that the word that it was using for captain wasn't one that I recognized, but I don't know like the military term for captain, like the Kriegsmarine term for it. So it could be different than the one that I know. It doesn't matter. We don't have a lot of time for that. And did you try to watch it with subtitles on? Because I didn't have that as an option when I was watching it because I was watching it on my tablet. So I didn't try to see if it put down what the subtitles were saying.
I did, but I don't think it showed.
Did it just say speaking German? Anyways, back to Nick. He's on his way down the deck, but then he gets hit in the back of the head by a heavy crane hook, which knocks him over a balcony and into the deck below. Don't worry, he's not dead. It just hurt him really bad, I guess.
Well, don't worry, they're going to cut back and forth 100 times to make sure.
Don't you worry. There's going to be plenty of cuts. This should be called Cut Ship, am I right? Anyways, Sylvia says that the ship seems to have a life of its own. It does, or a death of its own. And then one of the kids says they're frightened. It's like, whatever. Marshall wants to move on. He doesn't have time for this. The next corridor on our long tour of corridors is Robin walking into one of those impossible cobwebs and being scared. Then this is their way into like a larger crew quarters, like with several beds and stuff like that. This is when Lori suggests that the nationality of the ship must be German because there's like a sign with some German writing on it. It's like, yeah, that's a good work, MacGyver. You figured it out. Or MacGyver's not a detective, is he? He's more like a improvisational wizard. Good work, Columbo. Use take 2. Then Margaret heads out with the kids to find a galley and get some water. Lori heads off to find replacement clothes for everyone. And then Marshall takes Sylvia to go out to the deck and get Ashland. Why he picked Sylvia, the old lady, as his person to help carry the captain's not a small man. Ashland is not a small man, but yeah, he picked the meek old lady. In the galley, no one will be seated as Margaret and the kids move around the abandoned kitchen and look at how everything looks old and cobwebby. Ooh. Margaret suggests that if they find water, that even though there is running water, it needs to be boiled, and they shouldn't eat anything they find. I was like, all right, good work. Don't eat ancient World War II food. Lori, walking the abandoned halls, hears some 1930s music playing somewhere. And by the way, I saw in the goofs that it said that like there was 1930s music playing, but this ship would have been around in the 40s. I'm like, yeah, dude, but they still had music from the 30s. Are you kidding me? It's not like they had to time travel back 10 years to get music from 1932. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not a goof.
It's not how music works.
Not at all. So like there's 1930s music playing somewhere. She arrives to like this old room and there's a record player and it starts to skip. So she removes the needle. But then when she moves and goes out to the hallway, to the corridor, the music starts again. Shane, how spooky.
I was so scared.
I know. I paid for my entire seat, but I only needed the edge. And then although concerned, Lori just moves up the set of stairs. She's like, I gotta find clothes. I don't have time for this. We get some more shots of empty ship corridors with old-timey music echoing throughout it. Again, this is kind of one of those things where like it doesn't know the kind of movie it wants to be because that is a haunting shot. That's good. But that isn't the movie this seems to be trying to be. Like, what kind of, is it trying to be atmospheric? Is it trying to be exploitative? It isn't sure. And I think that's one of the problems with this movie. Margaret and the children are boiling water. For whatever reason, Robin's talking about condensation. Margaret's like, oh, you learn a lot in school, don't you? It's like, all right, cool. Back to Lori. That was all that scene was. It was just to find out Robin learned about condensation in school. Cool. Back to Lori. She's in a room gathering some clothing. She hears some groaning noises. And then a door handle starts to turn. And it's like, oh no, is there going to be like a zombie or something that would really liven up things? No. The door handle was just another one of those like off-screen things that was happening that doesn't matter. And the groaning was actually Ashland, who's being escorted down the hallway corridor by Marshall and Sylvia. So if you thought something cool was about to happen, you're wrong. Back in the crew quarters, they put Ashland in a bed, and then Margaret, Marshall, and Sylvia cover him up. It's then that Marshall questions if anyone's seen Nick, which they haven't. So, is Nick okay? Suddenly a phone starts to ring. Everyone looks around with concern. Marshall answers it, and it seems like his voice is going through the intercom that we see the German voices go through. I'm not sure the significance of that, and the movie never tells me. But he hears no answer, so he hangs up the phone. Everyone's like, oh, it must be Nick, right? It's like, no, because cut to Nick waking up on the deck he fell onto. Oh, no. But at least he's not dead.
No one like cared or looked for him or was like, eh.
No one cared enough to like look for him. Come on. Another instance of Ashland hearing the sounds of German voice speaking to him. This time it's accompanied by a vision of a man in a naval outfit on the top deck of the ship. So like, what could that mean? What does it mean? Suddenly there's like a slamming sound as various doors start to close throughout the ship for no real reason. So spooky stuff's happening. And that includes the crew quarters. There's like, I think 2 doors, or maybe, there's 2 doors. or is there 3? There might actually be 3 doors in the crew quarters, but they all slam shut. And Marshall's like, oh, don't worry. These old doors, they get so old and they can be broken easily. And then he goes to try to open it and absolutely cannot. He's like, wow, way to go, Marshall. But luckily Nick arrives and he opens it quite easily because it was able to be opened from the outside. Must be some more ghost stuff. Nick informs him that there is no one else on board. So he and Marshall head off together to investigate further. And Nick is concerned because the ship is running itself. Because at this point, as we know, the engine started up and it started driving away. Marshall's like, let's get to the bridge. We'll figure this out. That's fine. Back to Ashland. He's again wakened by the German voice. It's trying to tell him to do something quickly. And it must be telling him to go to the bridge because he says that's what he wants to do. The only word I recognized was sofort, which I think means immediately. So like they were, the voice is telling him to do something. Ben, stops him. He's like, you can't be getting up. And then Ashland asks him what ship he's on, and Ben's like, no one knows. And then Sylvia comes and helps Ashland lie back down, tells him he needs to rest. He takes her up on that offer. And then now we are in I don't know what room we're in. Most of the rooms, I don't really know what they are. We find that there's a chart that Marshall finds. He's like, oh, the ship is moving in a circle around the Atlantic constantly. And ironically, that's the thing that Ashland hated about the cruise ships. And it's ironic because he's going to actually want to be captain of this boat. Well, I'm not going to bring up what I was going to say, but I will bring it up when we find out what the ship is. Because there is a problem with this entire premise. And it has a lot to do with why there'd be this ship here in the Atlantic in this area. Anyways, Nick finds some radio equipment, but as soon as they activate it, it sizzles and sparks and breaks. It's like, well, not sending any messages on these ancient World War II radios, I guess. Back in the crew's quarters, there's a bunch of everyone's sitting there like reading some of the stuff. And so, okay, here's something you only know if you're a history person. The magazines that they're reading are Nazi propaganda magazines that they put in like Allied territories and then like occupied territories. It's called The Signal. And they're all sitting there reading it. And it's like, what, like they still don't know what kind of ship they're on when there's all these like Nazi magazines there. And they get so close to getting the point. Cause like Lori notes, like the one magazine's like, oh, this is about Hitler. And Ben's like, who's Hitler? And Sylvia, in possibly the most understating manner possible, is like, a rather unpleasant man. He started World War II. It's like, well, technically correct, but that's an understatement. But yeah, so yeah, they're all reading a Nazi magazine, and they apparently don't know that. And I don't think that actually a ship would have that, because I think that there was like, it was like a for the entire German army, they all had versions of the Signal, but I thought that there were like versions specific to certain branches. Like I thought the Luftwaffe and the Kriegsmarine had their own versions of it. So they would have a different version of the Signal. It wouldn't be the Signal.
Yeah, I really don't know.
I could be wrong.
It's
been a while since I've closely read World War II history. So suddenly, elsewhere, a projector starts up and it's playing a 1930s tune and the accompanying film on a projector, obviously. The film is apparently called Everything is Rhythm. The movie doesn't tell us that, but I looked it up. Margaret, Lori, and the children go to investigate because they think it indicates there could be someone else on the ship. Because, why would you think a ghost would want to watch a movie? Marshall and Nick find the engine room. They remark that it's incredible, but also question what it's using for fuel because all of the gauges read 0. So this is why I was telling you, maybe you're right that this ship is in fact evil because it will run on nothing. But maybe it's running on ectoplasm, Shane.
Or blood.
Oh my, don't even. Because as soon as we get to the, all right, we'll get to that part and I'll explain why it's wrong. They know that we need to get off this ship because this is weird. Ben finds the room where the music was coming from and he says, oh, it's a movie house. And Margaret's like, there's no way. And then she walks in right after. I was like, oh, there's a way. Everyone filters in, and the projector, is turned on, and it starts playing the movie. Everything is rhythm. They're watching it. Sylvia, now alone with Ashland, goes over to the cabinet, kind of nearer to Ashland, and looks at a copy of Signal. And then she notices that there are some hard candies. They look like little mints in a jar nearby. And she decides, well, there's no way that they can be evil, right? So she eats one. Guess what, Shane?
Is it
They're
evil?
evil. Ashland groans, so Sylvia goes over to check on him. But he seems like he's settled, so she keeps eating the candy. Margaret, Lori, and the kids are in the projection room watching the old movie. I would much rather be watching that movie, is what I put in my notes. It looks like a pretty fun musical. Sylvia ends up falling asleep and is awakened by Ben, who like runs in, and she like hushes him so as to not wake up Ashland. And Ben was going to get her to come watch the movie with them. Then back to Marshall and Nick. And if you feel like, oh, am I just quoting, like going back and forth between different characters doing different things? That's what this movie does all the time. It just cuts back and forth between different characters at different times. It's like a series of small vignettes of different people doing different things, except occasionally interrupted by what I could only describe as machinery porn when we go and cut to the ship machinery working. So in case I forgot the boat was operating.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just weird decisions on like why cut here. I don't know.
It really could have benefited from.
I stopped questioning this about halfway through. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to finish this.
I just live here now. Yeah. Yeah. So meanwhile, Marshall and Nick come and take a look at the lifeboats. They note, hey, those are in good shape. So they decide, hey, let's go wash up, get the others, get out of here on these lifeboats. GTFO, bro. In the projection room, the movie suddenly shuts down and everyone's like, aw. But interestingly enough, Sylvia is in the dark from the angle that we see. He's like, why can't we see her face? What's going on? But then Robin, who's sitting in front of Sylvia, turns around, sees her face, screams, and runs away. And when she turns around, everyone sees that she has like now a messed up, like decomposing looking face. It's like, oh man. It's like, hey man, age comes at you hard. Am I right?
About time.
Yeah. The screaming gives Ashland some visions of other deformed, tortured faces, accompanied by some screaming. So like Ashland is getting a lot of visions of some evil stuff. Okay, I skipped something in my notes. So Sylvia like gets up and like runs out of the projection room because all the children are now frightened, and she's now like, what's happening to me or whatever. You think you'd have a lot of time like to explore this, but you do not, because spurred on by a German voice and a vision of strangling a man, Ashland has now started strangling Sylvia to death because she ran back to the crew quarters. Yeah. So there you go. Confusing. Robin runs into Marshall, which gives time for Lori to catch up. I don't know if I mentioned it. Lori was the one who gave chase when Robin ran away. She explains that something's wrong with Mrs. Morgan, which is the first time we hear Sylvia's last name. Marshall arrives to find that Sylvia is dead and there's a blanket on her. He lifts it and is like, oh, damn. Probably sees her like fucked up face. Ashland walks out from another room and it looks like he's like drying his hands off, like he just had to wash them. And he says Sylvia had a seizure and it was quick, but at least she won't be a pain now. And it's like, he's like, Marshall, gather everyone for a burial at sea. It's like, man, like this dude's cold. And also like, I feel like you could tell when someone's been strangled to death and doesn't look anything like a seizure, but maybe like Marshall was too busy looking at the fact that her face looked like some kind of gross melt flesh. I kind of wish we gotten a better look at that messed up face, by the way. We did not get a good enough look at it.
No, not at all.
Now, smash cut. Burial at sea. Marshall's giving a eulogy at the burial. Ashland comes out and he's like, yo, you're doing that all wrong, dude. And also, I noted that Marshall's wearing a spiffy looking white turtleneck. It's like, is that what Germans had on their boats at that time?
I guess. And why is he the only one that has the?
He doesn't. Nick has a black one on.
Yeah, but I mean, it takes him a while to change.
Oh yeah. Well, I think they changed before the burial, or at least he and Nick did, because they were covered in all that oil juice. Remember, because they got oil juiced when they're climbing up the side. Do you remember that when the boat shot oil in them for like no real reason? I guess. But Ashland, like I said, he's like, "You're doing it all wrong. Talking to my boy all wrong." So he comes out and he busts out a book and starts reading a prayer from it. But guess what that book is? Well, I mean, it's a Bible. You could probably guess that. But guess what language it's in, Shane?
Dutch.
Deutsche. But yeah, it has the characters that I was talking about, the font that they use in their Bibles. So interesting. What a fun connection to the opening credits. So yeah, and I thought it was kind of funny because Ashland is reading it in English, but it's written in German. After the prayers, Nick lifts the plank in order to deposit Sylvia into the sea. So, bye, Sylvia. We hardly knew ye. I mean, we knew that your husband died and you dressed like a pilgrim. But after she hits the water, the first lifeboat unhooks itself and starts to fall down to the water below. Like Nick and Marshall run and then see it happen. And they're like, go to the other boat. So like they run to the other one. And just as they start to run towards it, it starts to deploy as well. And then what? Margaret's like, this damn ship. And Nick's like, it's like it's alive, trying to kill us.
I'm telling you.
It's like, it might be the ship. So do you think the ship is in fact evil, but they had to dispose of the lifeboats because they weren't evil and they had to disconnect them? It's like,
yeah, I'm surprised. Or the lifeboats, like, just, I think it would have been funnier if the lifeboats just sunk themselves, like scuttled themselves against the boat, so no one could get away because they're just that vindictive.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is like all the tools on the boat are bad, so the lifeboats were far enough removed that they weren't bad. So that's why like the winches and mechanisms had to like operate to drop the lifeboats into the water. It's like,
maybe.
we have to get these guys out of here, and then like full throttle, baby, hit up that langsam voraus. We're out of here.
I feel like I think we're giving too much credence to this idea to make the movie better.
That's one of my favorite things to do. After another intercut of ship movement through the water, because we get that shot a lot, we see Ashland now in a new uniform. And let me tell you something real fast about this new uniform. So the hat is definitely got like the Nazi eagle on it and stuff. But like the rest of that uniform does not look like a Kriegsmarine uniform to me. Was it? Like, maybe I just don't know enough about like German naval outfits, but it did not look like a Kriegsmarine uniform to me at all.
I'm just going to level with you. I don't have much knowledge of what Nazis wore.
Oh, okay.
So
well, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think it looked much like that.
Okay.
But, hey, write in if I'm just
swastikas.
If I'm just wrong as hell. Well, there's the only swastika was the hat, the eagle on the hat,
right?
But then again, a lot of times movies don't use like actual Nazi uniforms to portray them because then they exist and they're in the world. So it's like better to just like replace them with something else and like not do it. So I understand that if that's what they're going for, that's good, and that's very possible because it does seem like the filmmakers do understand the weight of this idea, even though the movie they're executing on kind of needs a filmmaker that doesn't. That's kind of part of like the two minds that this movie seems to be made of. Anyways, what was it? I said Ashton's in his new outfit. He moves to look down at Marshall from above, and this is the vision that he had earlier of a man up on the high deck looking down. And he yells at Marshall, telling him to come up to the bridge. Once Marshall gets to the bridge, Ashland asks him if he'd like to inspect the wheelhouse. He's like, sure. They go into a room that's definitely way too small to be a wheelhouse, both in terms of the low ceiling and in just the amount of room in there. That is not the wheelhouse a ship of that size would have. And this one I actually did see reflected in the IMDb goofs. So some of the things I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. In the IMDb goofs are like, there's no way a wheelhouse would be this small. It's like, hell yeah, I was right. Like the same with the spiderweb one. It's like, would there really be spiderwebs on a ship after like this many years, like decades and decades? It's like, no, they would have ran out of food so fast being out in the open ocean. It's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not crazy. But yeah, so it was like, there's no way that the wheelhouse would be this small. Yeah. So like, what is it? Like, Ashland's just walking around looking at equipment. Like, here are the charts. Here's the sextant. Here's the steerage. here's my, and was it, this is my chair. It is ideal for long voyages. And Marshall's like, your chair? And this is where things start to get a little tense between them. So Ashland asked Marshall if he'd like to steer. He's like a lot of people like to pretend to be captains. He's like, oh, he's taking a swipe at him. I see. But then once Marshall gets to the wheel, he's unable to turn it. Ashland is upset. He's like, he accuses Marshall of taking his last ship, but he's like, but you will not take this one. And Marshall's like, the company took the ship from you because you didn't know how to deal with people, which again is a big part of running a cruise ship. Ashland says, oh, that may be, but I can handle a ship. And then he like takes over the wheel and is able to turn it easily. It's like, oh no, the ship respects Ashland? No, but it's up to no good. What is it? Marshall now wants to take command, but Ashland says it will be impossible for him to take this one over. And then Marshall asks Ashland where he wants to sail the ship, and Ashland says eternity. I'm like, oh, okay, so what? So you want to die? Like, this makes no sense. Or he just wants to be a part of the ghost ship, like he understands it's a ghost ship. There's so much vagueness in this conversation. The only thing that really stands out is their hostility for each other. It's kind of cool to see that boiled to the top. It would have been way better if it didn't have all the ghost stuff in with it too. Margaret is putting the kids to sleep. Robin wants to leave the ship right away, but Margaret notes that it's dark and they won't really see what they're doing. Then we had a jump scare as Marshall's hand is on her shoulder. It's like, oh, that was probably the only jump scare in this entire thing. And it's weird that it's such a cheap and bad one. He tells his wife that Ashland is going basically absolutely bonkers, and that he believes himself to be an actual German naval captain. And he notes that he thinks the ship has taken possession of him. So I guess you're right. It is the ship that's evil, but there's also ghosts, I feel like. Nick tells Lori that they will lock themselves in for the night. So they go off and find like a secluded quarters for themselves elsewhere. Ashland, still in the wheelhouse, is dozing off, and he has some more visions that will become important later. One is of a woman covered in blood in a enclosed area, and the other one is actually Nick reacting with fear and concern at something that he's seeing in front of him. So there you go, more visions. Not sure why the boat is giving Ashland the visions, because he doesn't care about them, but no time to question it. Ben wakes up and he has to go pee again. So yeah, Ben does another jump out the bunk, and he lets Robin know that he has to go again. She tells him to hold it till morning. And let me tell you, as someone who's once a kid who wet the bed, that does not work. But he asked her to go with him, and she does, and then says men. Like, oh, it's a reflection of the gender stuff from earlier. Because men and women, am I right? Like, real funny stuff.
Hilarious.
Really funny stuff. Walking the halls, we know that they don't know. They talk about how they don't know where the bathroom is. It's like, but didn't their dad open it like in front of them earlier, like right down the hall?
Multiple times.
Well, there you go. Anyways, back in their bunk room, Marshall and Margaret are sleeping and don't notice as a ghostly force opens the door and then closes it again. Spooky. Like, there's a lot of scenes like that of just like ghostly stuff happening with no one noticing it. It's like, that's not that scary. Like, it wasn't that scary in Paranormal Activity. Certainly not that scary here in the 1980 film Death Ship.
Pretty pooky.
Pretty pooky. What is it? Then they find a toilet and Ben is done in it. And it's like, oh, okay, that was it. I thought there'd be something scarier that happened. Don't worry, it's coming. But he did find the toilet without incident. Meanwhile, in bed, Nick says that he loves Lori and asks her if she loves him too. And she says that if he'd asked a week ago, she would say no, but now she'll say maybe. It's like, hey guys, I think you're just in an emotionally charged, difficult situation. You probably need to reevaluate these emotional connections that you're forming on a traumatic event. But anyway, she gets up to take a shower. Meanwhile, the children are walking the halls and scared. There are more corridor action in case you were worried we wouldn't get any more. Ben says he's scared shitless, and Robin says it's shitless. He's like, well, I'm not going to say that. They go down the darkened hallway, and then they get to like a staircase, and Robin says men first, ladies last. And Ben's like, that's not the saying. And then she's like, it is now. So Ben moves ahead while whistling in order to, I guess, like make sure Robin knows where he is. But he like immediately stops as soon as he moves into the darkness. So then Robin gets scared and follows him. Meanwhile, while showering, Lori notices she can't open the door to get out of the shower. Which, by the way, okay, before I get into this next scene, which is probably one of the better ones in this movie, earlier we saw when they're in the galley, they were running the water and it was really gross looking and they had to boil it to make it like usable. But here when she's showering, it seems totally normal. Is this ghost magic or just the movie forgot?
Movie forgot.
Okay. Movie forgot. But anyways, so Lori is unable to open the door. Nick says it's stuck, but then the shower starts to like pour blood on Lori and like, she's freaking out. Ben is just like smashing at the door with like a piece of wood or something. But he's unable to get it to break open, probably because he's not hitting the glass part. He's actually hitting the side of the door, which I thought was pretty funny. Anyways, Lori's getting just totally bloodified up in there. It's pretty gross. And there's a lot of crosscuts here. So this is going to happen pretty fast. But I will say the scenes with Lori just getting progressively bloodier in this like blood-filled shower is pretty crazy. So
it's crazy, but it's like, is it like hot blood?
No, she's just having a mental breakdown of it.
Like acid blood?
No, it doesn't. It's not physically hurting her. She's just going into shock from it. Like it's freaking her out. Which I probably wouldn't feel that way, but it's a movie. You have to buy into some fiction. If I can buy into a ghost ship, I guess I can buy into somebody being freaked out by a blood shower.
True.
There you go. So we cut between Lori in the blood shower, and then we find Ben finding the engine room and just seeing all the machinery operating on its own. And then Robin is wondering where Ben is, and she goes down a set of stairs and she ends up somewhere else, which we'll find out where she is. Nick tells Lori not to give up, and then he runs away to go get help, not just leave her there in the blood shower. In the room where she ended up in, Robin hears, it's like a radio room, like a bunch of radio stuff. And then one of them starts playing a German song that is the one in all those like TikTok memes that are like jokes about like if something looks like it's like Hitler or something. It's called the Horst Wessel-Lied, which is like the unofficial German national anthem alongside like, what was it, Deutschlandlied, which was the major one, the first, like the Deutschland über alles one. But then they also played the Horst Wessel-Lied a lot as well. And then it's kind of a messed up scene as that song plays and it cuts to like Lori spinning frantically, like hitting the walls of the blood shower. That was crazy. Yeah, I was like, oh man, this is like, okay, this is going for something. I think it's working. And then like at the end of like the series of cuts, it's just like Lori just like seems to give up hope and like curls up into a fetal position at the bottom of the blood shower. So there you go. She's done. She's not dead though, but she's done dealing with this.
She wishes
this life. Yeah, for sure. Ben ends up in a long corridor because everything is a damn long corridor in this boat. And he hears a spooky knocking sound. He stops and looks around and then runs again. Meanwhile, Marshall has noticed the kids are missing, finally. So he's out looking for them. Ben, followed shortly by Robin, run into Ashland of all people. And he says, I will help you. And then he like actually takes them back to their father, which is interesting because we know Ashland is evil at this point, but I guess he hasn't had a vision of the kids dying yet. So he's not ready to kill them. I don't know. I don't really understand how he decides when it's time to like mess people up,
I guess the ship does.
It must be the ship. Must be the money. So Marshall greets his children. He's like kissing them and stuff like that. And he glances up at Ashland, and then when he looks down at his kids again and looks up again, Ashland is gone. Oh no, he's become part of the ghost ship. He has supernatural disappearing powers. Quick cut to Lori in the blood shower in case you forgot. And then cut again to Nick arriving to get Marshall and tell him to come back to help with Lori. But once they get back to the room, the shower is empty and also bloodless. Back on the top deck, Ashland is carrying the bloody, I guess not bloody, because bloody suggests that the blood originated from you, the blood-covered body of Lori to the edge. What?
I just like, that's funny.
Well, you know what I mean? If I say bloody, it implies it's her blood.
Yeah,
It's like,
I
no.
get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
So yeah, so like he
It's good imagery.
yeah. So he's carrying Lori to the edge to like throw her into the deep. Or that's actually what it says. He says he's going to commit her body to the deep. And Nick and Marshall run out and see this happen and are like yelling at him. So he throws her overboard. She's dead. Presumably in her catatonic state, it was fast that she drowned in the ocean. And also this flies against everything that we'll later learn about what the boat supposedly wants. But moving on, Marshall and Nick are like, we got to stop Ashland before he gets someone else. So they give chase. They start running after him. No one will be seated as they run through corridors for like 5 entire minutes, including slow motion for no reason. Like there's a lot of times. And actually, okay. So I get it. So they show Ashland moving through the halls in regular speed, and then they show Marshall and Nick running in slow motion. And then it's to imply that despite how quickly they're trying to move, they are not catching up to Ashland. Cool. But we didn't need to watch it for that long. You could have gotten it with a few shots and we would have understood the premise and you could have moved on to the next thing. But no, we get a really long time of it. They finally catch up to Ashland and he's opening a door and he like looks back at them and then looks to the door and goes through, clearly not trying to get them to follow him. Shane, he's totally trying to get them to follow. So they arrive and they open the door, but they don't find Ashland. But what do they find, Shane?
Nazis.
Nazi room. Well, not Nazis, just Nazi room. So they find this like huge, like red room, just tons of Nazi stuff everywhere. Nazi flags, pictures of Hitler, pictures of Nazi stuff. It's just Nazi city up in there. And then there's like a one curtain in the corner. And like Nick walks up to it, probably thinking that like hiding behind the curtain is Ashland. And he opens it up and he was correct. It's like a recessed like closet space, but instead it's just a painting of Hitler in there. It's like, okay, okay. Like funny kind of because like he thought that he was going to find his enemy instead of just found humanity's enemy, which is Hitler. They go into the next room and find like a medical room, like a infirmary looking place. But they open a drawer and Marshall finds a metal container full of what? Did you know what this was as soon as you saw it?
No.
You didn't? Really? Okay.
No.
I thought that this was part of Holocaust studies in high school, but okay. So he picks up a container clearly containing gold teeth. And then...
Oh.
That's what I was asking
you,
is if you...
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
But why? But Nick apparently doesn't. So he like picks up a handful of them. It's like, what are those? And Marshall's like, gold teeth. And he's like, oh, and he like drops them. And I was like, oh my God, Nick, did you not know that's like what Nazis did was take gold teeth out of people's faces? Like, it's kind of wild to me that like he wouldn't know that, but like us, you know, all these years later, no. But hey, that's time, baby. Marshall says,
when was this movie taking place?
I think it was contemporaneous with when it was released. So it was released in 1980. I guess it could have been filmed a little earlier, but I can't imagine that it was a long production. So I would say if not late 70s and, you know, 80, like that era for sure. So yeah, not like as removed from World War II as we are. Like a lot of these people probably were alive during it, or at least part of it. Yeah, so then Marshall is like, oh, this must have been an interrogation ship, you know, because of all that stuff. And then they open the other drawer and it's just like a bunch of watches, like presumably watches from the people they captured. Yeah, so here's some of the more effective scenes. They go into the next room, just tons of corpses in all kinds of states. Some of them are laying in beds. Some of them are like pinned against walls. Some are in barrels. Some are just in water on the ground. Tons of corpses. And this is the part where I was telling you, like, you hear like screaming and suffering sounds of them, but I feel like that's an effect that's like not actually happening.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
like the horn.
No, I think the horn is, all right. Anyways, tons of screaming corpses. And then they go into the next room and it looks like it's the same projector room from earlier. And maybe they're just like using the same, I don't know, resources, or it's the same room. But what it's playing now is that Nazi movie of Hitler, which I think is Triumph of the Will, but I'm not sure. then this is the part where it starts getting like kind of crazy. So Nick is not like, neither man is happy with this. And they're basically being driven insane by this video of Hitler. And it's represented by them like hearing like screaming voices or like screeching noises and like holding their heads and like ripping at stuff. And Nick, and they both try to stop it in their own way. Nick apparently doesn't understand how projectors work. So he just starts tearing up the screen. And every time he does, like the movie's still there. It's like, yeah, dude, it's being projected onto that. It's like it's coming from that. So Marshall at least knows where it's coming from. He's attacking the projection machine, but that's not working either. And they both seem to be like in incredible pain, and they're like under attack from the images and sounds of like Nazism, which I think is an interesting way to show that.
Right.
And then Nick is like on his hands and knees in the pose that we saw from the vision that Ashland had. But what he's facing is the projector, which, you know, I think there's some subtext there about like the impact of like this horrifying ideology and the way it's just attacking their mental state clearly.
Right.
I'm guessing they're probably resisting whatever it is that Ashland didn't, like whatever it is that Ashland gave into. I think that they're like fighting against this like pervasive, pernicious, like evil force.
Right.
Yeah. But anyways, being hit with a projector light, Nick is having the same vision of like Ashland standing over him, and he like goes to jump at Ashland, and then Ashland sidesteps, and Nick is now on the deck, and he just jumped past Ashland into that hold of the ship, which he had a vision of someone earlier down there, which is his own death because he's about to die. So he falls in the hold, which is flooded. Ashland hits a switch, and then it lifts up like the chains that pull up like this like metal net. And suddenly Nick finds himself in a net full of decomposing corpses. Hooray! And it's just like a lot of like long, like it's a really long sequence, probably too long. Like I understand they're trying to show like the horror of it, but like, man, it takes way too long. It's just like what Nick's screaming and like flailing around in this like net full of corpses, trying to get out, but unable to. It's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
But it's,
I get this kind of shows like that they didn't really live in this genre when they did the filmmaking part of this.
Right. Because the spectacle doesn't live up to the amount of a point they're making it, which, you know, bummer, but you know, it's still decently effective. Like that would suck. Hey, let me tell you something, Shane. Let me tell you something about me. I don't want to be in a net full of decomposing corpses on a Nazi ghost ship. Not where I'd want to be. It's not my ideal summer vacation spot. So
write that down.
Yeah, jot that down. But anyways, Marshall. Oh wait, no, not Marshall. Hold on. Ashland hits the switch again, and then that closes the net on Nick, and then it sinks into the flooded hold, and he drowned. He's dead. He's gone. He's Gonzilla. So there you go. Bye bye, Nick. We loved you so much. But you know who didn't love him was Lori. Oh, one last burn on this guy as he goes to the bottom of the briny deep. Anyways, which by the way, I think, okay. So one real quick thing. I think that those like decomposing corpses in there are other people who were caught by this ghost ship in the past and went through this same stuff. Cause I think that some of these corpses are like new folk. But that's my theory. You like to talk about your theories. I think that these are like new people who were like put into this, and
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, we agree. But anyways, no time to talk about that. We have to talk about Marshall, who's still in the projection room under attack from the screeching voices. He has a vision of Ashland telling him that the ship needs blood to survive. And then this is so weird. So he says it like over and over again in different ways. Like, your blood, Marshall. It must have blood. And the blood of your wife. And the blood of your children. Wife, children, blood. It must have blood. Blood to survive. And it says it like in different ways, like over and over again. It's like, what is this real? But then eventually it turns out, no, it is real. Marshall's actually sitting in like captain's quarters with Ashland, who is actually saying this to him. So in like one of the funnier, but also more understandable moments, Marshall just grabs a knife from the table and just starts like stabbing the hell out of Ashland right there. Just gives him a good old stabbing. And let me tell you, the ship doesn't like it. Like the engine's shut down based on all the shots of machinery stopping anyway, of which there were many, because we have to see.
Yeah, I thought at first I thought it was a vision because of how abrupt it was, like how like, but yeah.
Well, that's what I wonder if like the idea was that both of them were fighting the Hitler movie projection visions, and you know, Nick failed because he tried to attack Ashland, and then that ended with his death.
Yeah.
But then like Marshall was probably trying to reason with him, so he ended up in his captain's quarters with him. Is what I assume. I don't know. Like, there's no way to. No one will ever know. But no time to think about that. While searching the halls for his family and for a way off the boat, Marshall finds a huge cooler room. Oh, he's not searching for his family. He's with his family at that point. So he has his wife and his kids behind him. He opens a door to a huge cooler room. Well, guess what's in there, Shane? Tons of bodies hanging on hooks.
Popsicles.
Yep. Corpsicles is what we call them in the biz. So he's like, Margaret, keep these kids back because there's corpses up in here. And it's basically a bunch of POWs is the implication. Like there's people in American outfits. There's people in like British outfits. Like it's just a bunch of like allied, you know, POWs is now dead hanging on hooks. And that brings me to my problem. And it is this. There is 0% chance that interrogation freighter was running circles in the Atlantic that entire time and survived the war to become a ghost ship.
Right.
Because there's just no way. Like the US like naval supremacy in the Atlantic was like in that area, especially like no way. There's no chance in the southern part of the Atlantic that they would have made that happen. So it's just wild to me that that's the idea here. Like I think the only ships that Germany would even put in the Atlantic were mostly like U-boats after the sinking of their flagship, right? The Bismarck. And didn't the Bismarck sink in the North Sea? So even that doesn't...
Yeah,
it makes no sense that this ship would be out there able to do this.
Yep.
So
that's the one thing that this movie had going for it, like with consistency, is that none of it made any sense.
It's a ghost ship from another dimension where the U.S. didn't have hegemony over the Atlantic. Or even if the U.S. didn't.
Again, that would have been cooler.
A ghost ship from another dimension.
Yeah, dude, you were like, every time we make a joke about what this movie could have been, that could have been
that was a better version of what this is. But while looking through the bodies, trying to find something to help them get out of there, Marshall hears the engines have started up again. We find out because we cut to the engines again. Basically, anytime I talk about the engines, I know it because they cut to it and make sure we know it. But Ashland lying on the ground, his eyes move. It suggests he might still be alive. Shane, he's not dead. Marshall comes out with life jackets for the kids and for his wife. And then he goes back in and Margaret's like, what are you doing going back into the corpse room? He's like, I think I found something else we can use. And he comes out with a raft. There's a raft on one of those soldiers in there. So there you go. American soldiers, greatest generation, still saving people's lives. The ship is on the move again, however. So in an effort to stop it, Marshall goes out to the deck and like hits the, what's the word for what brings up the anchor? Oh man.
I don't know. They hoist the anchor.
Well, he's trying to unhoist it. He's trying to make it go down.
Lower.
I was just trying to think of what the word was for what the thing is that pulls the anchor up, that holds the anchor.
A pulley.
Anyways, Marshall hits the anchor chain to try to get it dislodged and succeeds, and it goes down. However, before the family can jump off the ship, they find themselves being shot at by Ashland from that top deck. He's shooting at them. But they avoid the gunshots and hide. The kids manage to jump to like a lower side of the deck to get away. And then Margaret's running, but she nearly gets hit, but she's able to like avoid it with like a power slide. It's pretty slick. Wouldn't expect Truly Scrumptious to pull moves like that. She gets over to the side deck too. However, Shooter McGavin has made his way down there and he's on the approach. Shooter McGavin, of course, is Ashland. So he's on his way. Marshall tries to use some stealth skills to get behind Ashland and stop him before he gets to his family, but fails pretty spectacularly. Like he gets like knocked down by Ashland. Ashland like uses the butt of the gun to like smash his knuckles and then hits him in the back of the head to knock him out. And it's like, oh man, you could not have rolled lower on your attack scores, sir. The raft, however, is overboard, and the kids have also jumped overboard, so they're out there. But before Margaret can jump down, Ashland grabs her. He pulls her to some kind of weird dingy room. Margaret's now stuck in there. She can't get out. Oh no, scary. It's a scary dingy room. But suddenly another ship is close enough to the ghost freighter that it's like, oh, like it's activated again. So it like does the same thing we saw it do at the beginning when it spotted the cruise ship. It like the German voice comes in through the intercom. It's yelling. It's lifting the anchor. It's engaging the throttle. It's engaging the engines. It's going straight to Langsam. It's going to Voraus. It's going, dude. So, Marshall wakes up, sees his kids are rowing away, but doesn't see his wife. So he like runs out. He's like, "Where's your mom?" It's like she didn't make it yet. And then luckily Margaret did somehow just get the door open to whatever chamber she was in. So that wasn't really a very big impediment. So she gets out and her and Marshall jump overboard and start swimming to the raft with the kids. So happy ending, right? Not yet. Ashland sees them swimming. He's like, no. Yeah, he issues the order to turn hard to port, but the boat doesn't. And so he like goes and like tries to turn the wheel and it won't turn. See, the ship now sees another like boat it can destroy. So it's like done with these people. Yep. It's ready to move on. But Ashland is not. He's angry with the ship for disobeying him. He's like yelling at it. He's like, "I'm commanding you to alter course." So since the ship is still disobeying, he like Ashland goes down to the engine room and just starts shooting his gun at the machinery in the engine. It's like, that'll show it, right? So he ends up shooting it until like a ricochet like hits him and he like falls over like the side down to the bottom and like gets caught into some gears and just gets like really gruesomely, like his hand is getting ground up in his entire arm.
Like pulverized.
He's just getting like pulverized by this thing. He's just getting pulled into these gears. Like, ugh. In the raft, the Marshall family's together again. They notice the ghost ship is moving away. It's going the opposite direction. So Marshall confidently says, "Well, we will be okay now." It's like, hey man, don't jinx it. That boat's not even out of sight yet. But it turns out he was right. Search helicopter is above them, sees them in the raft. They're saved. The helicopter's like, "We're about to engage in life-saving maneuvers." So yeah, Marshall family's safe. Yay. But meanwhile, the ghost freighter is still chugging along in pursuit of another vessel. And, we couldn't end the movie without seeing more scenes of the boat water from the front and more scenes of the machinery in the engine room operating and more scenery of the throttle operating and then the triumphant horn of the evil ship. And then it ends on the sound of its next collision, Shane. And that is what we in the biz call the death ship.
Jesus. Oh, we did it.
Yeah, perfect 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm just so glad it ended with the weird, like, pointless machine working thing.
You're so glad it ended with that? It was like throughout.
Yeah, it's a through line.
Like, I have to assume that there's someone in the world who, like, is watching this movie and watching that machine goes like, fuck yeah. Look at that.
Look at this. This is fucking.
Look at those. Look at those machine parts go. Yeah, make it happen.
Look at those DA37 pistons fucking just moving.
It's like, how do they keep it lubricated? It said they didn't have any oil. How's it working?
Blood would be a terrible lubricant.
That's the other thing. How is this boat looking for blood? Because it literally like threw most of its victims overboard.
I don't know.
Does it not know that the victims have the blood in them? You can't throw them in the ocean.
Last time I checked, boats aren't very smart.
That's the problem, yeah. Man, these short-sighted boats, if they just thought a little more, they might have won the war.
Man, I don't know how we're going to do this next part because I absolutely will not pick the only, like, death. It's like...
What do you mean?
Well, who do you pick?
I have one in mind.
All right. Who's yours? What do you want to do? A 3, 2, 1?
I don't know. Do you have one in mind? I thought you were acting like you didn't even know.
Yeah, I have one in mind. No, it's going to be difficult.
All right, well, we
I think.
haven't introduced the segment yet, so we have to do that first.
All right, good. Do
The
it.
McMurder of the movie.
Wait.
Man,
You are
I mean, we
struggling
only have-
to get through this entire
well,
movie, dude.
because yeah, let's just do 3, 2, 1. Ready? So 3, 2, 1.
Lori.
Captain Ashland. What?
Lori, dude. Her death was horrifying. Like she was trapped in an enclosed space, just being sprayed with blood, like
But that
totally
didn't kill
naked,
her.
which is a totally like vulnerable position to be in. And just like, it didn't kill her, but she wasn't even, by the time like Ashland got to her, she was so catatonic that she couldn't, like, it didn't even matter anymore. And then she was just like pitched overside to like drown, which is one of the most horrifying ways to die. But she wouldn't even like have the will left to fight anymore because she had been like completely put into shock because of what the boat did to her.
Well, if you're talking about horrifying deaths, then Jackie takes the cake then.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean,
But I refuse to choose him.
yeah, I figure that was one you don't want to choose. You don't want to choose the actual Jewish person that was obviously killed because they were a Jewish person. It's like, and I think the filmmakers had enough self-awareness to understand that was the move they were making and to not call it out, but to make it part of the subtext, which I thought was awesome and actually kind of interesting. So you want to do Ashland then?
But I guess he doesn't count because he's the bad guy.
Well, I mean, you could argue that he's as much a victim of this ship as anyone else is. Like, just because he was like a total dickhead doesn't mean he wasn't still like manipulated and, you know, controlled.
Nick's was pretty horrifying too. I guess there were more than I thought. Now that I'm
Oh,
talking through it.
Nick with like being on the pile of
corpses.
soggy corpses and then drowned with them. Oh, I didn't even think about that one. That's messed up.
A lot of drowning.
A lot of drowning, which is also awful.
More drowning than I expected.
Yeah, I expected a lot more death shipping.
Yeah, more deathing.
More shipping. I expected more relationships. I get. Well, I don't know. Now that you mentioned Nick, though, like the horror on his face during his death, to the point where he just basically got like crushed by the corpses in that net when it shut, because it shut
Right.
like, I don't think I described it well. So it was like a metallic net. So when it shut, it like mouse trapped around him, kind of like it like like smashed around him like a mattress folding up. And then he was just like pulled under to drown. Oh, I might have to go with Nick after that.
Yeah, and then getting strangled by someone's probably pretty rough too, but they didn't really show that. So, yeah, I'm gonna go Nick.
Yeah, I like
Getting ground to death is pretty bad, but I agree drowning would be worse.
No, you mean you're talking about when Ashland got ground up by the machinery of the ship? Yeah, and I also still kind of, he was like still a dick though. Like I'm not gonna miss him.
You're kind of rooting for the ship at that point,
Right? Like this is the one time I'm gonna root for the ship. Like grind that dude up,
right?
But yeah, but like that was the thing. Is like I think that like probably the most horrible situation is what Lori went through, because that seemed awful. But yeah, Nick's, in terms of just the whole package, like being like falling into, because like, you know, one of my greatest fears is water that I can't see the bottom of.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that muddy little hold was flooded and he couldn't see, and then when the net came up it was corpses, and then when
It's probably not mud.
Oh, okay, gross. So anyways, so like dirty water, and then like suddenly he's trying to climb out and then it lifts up, and then now he's in like a bunch of soggy corpses. He's like rolling around in them trying to get out, but he can't because like they're all gross and he's sliming around in them. And then it like, after he screams for a long time, it like finally shuts and then drowns him. Yeah, it's pretty gross. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Nick. I'm grossed out now.
All right, we did it. That was easier than I thought.
We did it. You let your hatred of the machinery of the boat cloud your judgment of the rest of the movie.
I did. Well, speaking of hatred, what's next?
Speaking of hatred, what's next is the
Judgment categories.
You like that one? I held the category. I held the.
I liked it.
Big eyes ways. Anyways, this is the part where we ascribe a letter grade to 5 categories. They are story, which includes writing, acting, effects, music, which also can include sound design. There's not a lot of that here, so this is gonna be interesting. And then finally is cult factor. Cult factor being that little X factor that makes these movies so special.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's start out with story.
Let's.
All right. I will say when I first watched this, I super didn't like it. But the more that I read about the filmmakers and understood maybe what they might be going for with something like this, I grew to appreciate it okay. I do like the main rivalry that's set up between Marshall and Ashland. I do like that Ashland I like the idea that there's like visions of deaths that kind of travel between different people, and it's not always the same person. It sort of like ascribes this like ethereal, like supernatural quality to like just being in the ship's area. Unfortunately, I don't think it happens enough. Like if more people had visions than just what Ashland and Nick, really, right? Like if they'd spent more time giving more people visions of things like that, it would have been way more effective. But I do like that idea, and I like the idea of like an evil ship that just takes out like the aggression of all of the like, because presumably it's powered, like they said it runs on blood, or that's what the captain said. It's like when does it ever run on blood? No, that's dumb. That makes no sense. It seems more like it's powered by like the bad energy created by like all the torturing and death that happened on it. So that's kind of cool. But also the fact that it's like a German prisoner like freighter that's just been circling the Atlantic throughout the war makes no sense. It makes the least amount of sense of anything I've ever seen in my entire life. Like that shit would have been sunk moments later. And even a small amount of research could have proven that. So like you could have just done it like in another sea where like the German like Navy was able to operate longer or something. I don't know. It just seems like so lazy in that regard.
Made it a ghost.
What?
Made it a ghost ship.
Just make it a ghost ship then. Like not a derelict vessel that's actually out there. Like that made no sense. So for the parts that I like, I might be willing to give it a B. Because I think that this is going to be the strongest part of the movie. I just wish there weren't as many shots of the engine or corridors.
Dude, are you high?
Yes.
A B?
I don't know. I really like the rivalry between the two captains and how it escalates and how that might be. So like if you read it another way.
So you like the last 20 minutes of the movie? The 10, maybe 15 minutes of the movie?
Yeah. Well, no, their rivalry, you see the embers of it in the beginning and on the cruise ship.
Oh my God.
It's just most of the middle part of the movie that Ashland spends catatonic.
I'm trying to pick if I want to argue with you or not now. Because I'd give it a D, but
I will not go to D. Absolutely not.
I know.
I'll go to C for you.
So think of it this way. Let's just think of it this way. Like, was the story of their rivalry good, or was the ability for George Kennedy and Richard Crenna to create tension? Like, I would say it was the actors saved this movie more than the movie did. There was a cool scene with the shower and the music and the stuff. That was cool. But man, I don't know. Cause like, think about like the Howling 2, right? Is this better than the Howling 2?
What do we give the Howling 2 story?
Like a C or a D?
All right. I'll give it a C.
Well, I'm just look. Here's this.
I'll go to a C. I said I'd go to a C.
Okay.
Because honestly, a lot of the lore of the ship doesn't make any sense.
Just make it a ghost ship. Like you didn't have to do the Nazi thing. There at no point in time. Like if I could get a master of this, I would cut the Nazi stuff out of it, and it still would make more sense. And not even add anything. Just take the Nazi stuff out.
Well, kind of doesn't make sense then why they'd kill that Jewish guy right away.
What?
It doesn't make sense then why it would kill that Jewish guy right away if it's not Nazi.
It tried to kill everyone.
Yeah, but it immediately killed the Jewish guy like moments after it got on the boat. Which I assumed it did that because of its Nazism.
I mean, someone's got to go first. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, is every horror movie from 1975 and later racist because they killed the black people first? I don't know. What do you?
Yes, they are.
Oh my God.
But all right, yeah, that's fine. We'll go ahead and say that it is.
I'm trying.
Yeah,
I'm trying to be positive. I know no one wants to hear people just shit on stuff constantly, but fuck, this movie was bad.
It's pretty bad. And
then you gave it a B though.
Yeah, but you talked me out of it by telling me that it's probably the acting that saved that storyline more than it is the storyline itself.
100%.
Yeah, and there's
these guys were acting their asses off.
All right, I'll go to C. I don't think I'm going to go to D.
I'm cool with C.
All right, C for story and writing.
All right.
Acting.
You want me to take this one?
If you want to.
All right, D.
You just talked me out of... No.
I'm kidding. I'm
you
kidding.
Jag. I'm going to light this house on fire, and I live here.
I think that the most redeeming quality of this movie were the ability for these actors and actresses to actually make any of this work. I'd go B for sure on acting.
I think the acting is the strongest element. Even the kid actors actually did quite well. And I thought it was actually kind of charming. The subplot of like Ben always having to pee all the time.
Right.
Like his kid just has to whiz. And they weren't as annoying as kids can be in some of these movies. So I actually enjoyed that. So yeah, I'm comfortable with B.
And then like Ashlyn didn't overdo like the possessed, like I'm a ghost kind of thing. Like, you know, sometimes people like overdo it with like weird like body twitches or facial expressions and stuff. Like,
it was super interesting because it wasn't all that different from how he was just a crotchety old dickhead to start with, but it was different. And it was different enough that like you could tell in like the way he like moved and the way he presented himself and the way he talked to people. Like even when he like found those kids and he wasn't going to hurt them, but he didn't act even the way he did. Like he was a dick to them before and he was being nicer to them now, but it seemed like he was being colder to them when he's being nice to them when he was under the influence of the ship, which takes a lot of skill. And you got to
probably because kid blood doesn't power the ship as much as people
blood. Well, first of all, kids are people, but second of all, does any blood even power the ship since most people were tossed out of it? Like,
it was his idea.
I don't know. George Kennedy, you told me this is how it is. But yeah, George Kennedy, that definitely shows like his range of acting. And by the way, apparently he's like one of the nicest guys on earth. So it's so funny that he always plays like either a tough guy or a mean guy. And he's actually super nice.
Like a hard ass. Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, B for acting. I'm down. I'm in it. I'm in it to win it. Bring it on in it to win it.
Cool.
Next up is effects.
Why don't you take this one?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know, there isn't really a lot of stuff. I mean, those boat parts, oh damn. Really gets my engine going. I don't, there wasn't really a lot of effects work in this to, like, I thought that Sylvia's messed up melt face looked messed up. I thought the blood thing was pretty effective. I think the consistency and the way they dealt with the blood is pretty solid. I guess whenever Ashlyn's hand is going through the gears and getting all ground up, that was pretty.
Yeah, that was pretty
gnarly looking.
The bodies in the freezer were pretty well done.
Oh yeah, and also, did you know that freezer scene wasn't even in a freezer? Like all of those like cold effects were done.
The dry ice, or what did they?
I don't know what they used, but you can tell because when Marshall's in there, you don't see his breath. So all of like the freezer effects were done in the room. So like all that, and then even like the torture room past like the medical room, where all of those all those like messed up like desiccated corpses and all those states of torture were. That was pretty crazy looking. None of it was moving. But
Nick death was good.
That's true. Yeah, like all the corpses he was on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess the effects were actually more solid than I thought. I didn't even think about like the corpses that they ran into around the place. That was all pretty messed up looking stuff. I don't know. It didn't really miss. It just didn't give us enough of it. So I don't know how you do that. Like, how do you handle if like it feels like a deficit, but what you got was good?
I mean, I'd say B on the effects.
I'd probably say B. Those, yeah.
And then the ship stuff was cool, like how they were able to make the ship look like it was moving.
You really liked how they showed us all the engine room stuff?
No, I mean that's filmmaking and like, oh my god,
it looked like a real ship,
dude. That fucking piston shot's gonna haunt me for the next 2 weeks.
Dude, how many times are we gonna see those parts move? Like, oh man,
the same part. It's like,
yeah, it's like
there are so many other parts of this.
There's
ship.
like the set of 3 and then that big one. It's like, look at this, it's moving. Look at this, they're moving. How do you like it? It's like, it looks great. Show it to me again. But no, yeah, I agree with B. I would have liked it to be a more active series of effect shot, but like those wet corpses, you show me a juicy corpse and I'm gonna believe it. So there you go. The Mummy 1999, you know.
Hey, don't hate. I love that movie.
I'm not hating. I'm just saying that he was a wet boy. All right.
Benny.
Benny. All right, next up. Music. And it can also include sound design. Music. Well, you go ahead and go.
Well,
I always let you go on music first.
I mean, I guess C, because like what do you even like? The cool radio scene was awesome. Like, I guess, like, I don't know. Again, this is one of those.
What radio scene was awesome?
With Robin, where they had the music playing over the.
When Lori was in the shower or whatever.
Yeah,
and so then Lori, the Horse and Vessel light is playing. Yeah, that was interesting. But that also feels like more of an editing and filmmaking choice than an actual audio choice, because that literally is a song that existed. Like, they just played that song.
Dude, I didn't think about this. I watched the second time. I watched the last half of this movie with headphones on. So I think, give me 1 second. I think it was in stereo and it was panning. So give me a moment.
I don't know what that means.
Like it was bouncing left to right as they spun. Fucking so many shots of that fucking piston room.
In case you forgot, the engine exists. Here you go.
Yeah, it's in stereo.
That's interesting. That's pretty cool.
Well, this is in mono though.
Wait, so it's not in stereo, or I don't understand.
The music's not in stereo, no.
Bummer.
Never mind.
Well, at the same time, that wasn't really.
But in the background, they're doing like a shrill thing, and it's panning back and forth to mimic the spinning. I don't know.
Well, it
Dude, I
starts
think
out
it's
with the
fucking cool.
music louder, but then it increases
Yeah.
that shrill sound as it goes to like represent the horror of the event that she's going through. And she's like spinning around that room and stuff. Like she's just like bouncing
Yeah.
off the walls trying to get out of there. I don't know. I thought it was very effective.
Yeah. Look, I'd probably honestly like with music, the music itself was a C. I guess sound design maybe a C or a B, but this is very I barely remember anything about the music. There was no like theme song or so.
There really wasn't.
And then any of the music that's memorable is and haunting because it was so evil and nefarious the first time it was used in the 40s. So I don't really think it's fair to.
You don't want to give the horse vessel lied credit for being gross because it was in existence.
Well, it's not that I don't want to give it. I don't want to give.
I don't want to give it any
movie credit.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't want to give the movie credit for using it. It's like, okay, good job. Like again, because I didn't even agree with the concept to begin with. So
yeah, I could see C because it's on the sea.
Yeah. Okay.
I would C for that music and sound design. Although I did like some of those spooky noises some of the corpses made, even though they didn't exist and it was just for effect. It was like,
Just like that horn.
no, you keep doing this. I know what you're up to. I know your game. You play a pretty good game, boy.
Pretty good game, boy.
Anyways, so it's C, music and sound. Anyways, now time for the cult factor, the little X factor. You're about to say F, aren't you?
No, this is our nice category. And I also looked at pictures of the boat that they did make a rust-shaped face on the front of the boat, which I thought was a little redeeming.
Yeah,
So.
credit to them for actually getting an actual boat for it. I didn't realize they'd do
True.
that. That was
You know
kind
what?
of cool.
True.
And this is probably where I'll talk more about like what I was saying is like all of the filmmakers on this were like people from theater, people from like, they weren't horror people. So they weren't speaking the language of horror. So they were trying to like essentially communicate in a genre that they aren't adept at and even seemingly well versed in. It honestly felt like it was mostly like a lark. Like I can't imagine what prompted them to want to make this. Like really the only person who had any amount of involvement in the horror genre or even the exploitation genre was Jack Hill, one of the people who came up with the story concept for it. And he wasn't even one of the actual screenwriters. So I'm very curious about why they decided to do this. And so many of those things are reflected in their choices of actors and their choice of theme. Like I think that they went with the Nazi thing because of the implicit horror in it. And I do respect that they give it, like, one of my problems with a lot of like old exploitation films that involve Nazi stuff is they're kind of flippant about it. And this one, like, it gives the Nazism its weight. Like, it is honestly like a horrible, like it's portrayed as a horrible thing, a thing that like hurts people's minds. Like it isn't like a bit, like a joke. And that's kind of one of the more uncomfortable things about it. Some of these exploitation movies that use it. At the same time, though, like it feels so inflammatory that's like, why would you damage your otherwise fun haunted house boat movie with this heavy thing and then treat it as such? Like, so it's hard to know whether I give it credit for that or if I deduct points for even doing it in the first place. It really feels like a clumsy attempt at doing something that a bunch of like otherwise better filmmakers and writers would be doing, and actors, honestly. Like, how many horror movies did you see in the resumes of most of these actors?
Right.
Like, not a lot.
Yeah, and I think again, you could have edited out every piece of every piece of Nazi like parts of this movie and it would still be the same movie. Like you would never even miss
I think
it.
they already edited out every bit of zombie in it.
Yeah, they did. That was kind of going to be my next point. But yeah, I think, talking about like they gave it some deference, I guess, right? Like they respected the weight of it. But I think that was kind of, they had a choice and they're like, we should either back off of this or we should go more into it. And I think they didn't go into it enough or they didn't back off enough. I think they were right at that point, that tipping point of like, they probably should either do more or do less. And I think they just kind of fucked up for lack of a better term. But
no, you're right though, because a lot of horror is kind of predicated on this iconoclasm. Like you don't I don't know, you don't give in to societal norms or stuff. You let the horror breathe and be transgressive, or you make it the transgressiveness part of the horror, and that is the entire thing. And this one, it seems like it's trying to do both. Right. And it doesn't do either well. I'm sorry, I interrupted you while you're trying to finish your sentence. So sorry.
Well, no, I mean, that's more, it was on topic. So like my next point is, this movie, like you brought this up, it's like your ghost ship movie. Like this had so many like almost callbacks to like Scooby-Doo cartoons. Like this is in my opinion, this is a few storyboard changes away from being a comedy, like a horror comedy. Like it was just that wacky that they could have gotten away with that.
Like how many times they can be walking around like dark, narrow corridors and like, I don't know where I am.
Like sans Nazi stuff, but like, exactly.
Yeah. No, how about them goofy Nazis? Am I right? Like what a bunch of goobers.
Like the weird, like him on all fours, like, I mean, there were just so many scenes where it could have gotten weirder, and goofier. And I think they could have easily turned this into a horror comedy. Like you could overdub this movie and probably make this like a like, you know what I mean? So that's my piece and I'm sticking to it.
That's a good piece. But I don't think we've gotten anywhere closer to understanding what we want to give it for cult factor.
I'd say B or an A. If the movie would have been a ghost ship, A, I think. But or if there would have been, again, not saying we needed more Nazis in the movie, but like zombies, like even having some physical antagonists would have been great.
I feel like it needed to lean more, more into one aspect of its being. Like it needed to either be an atmospheric horror or it needed to be like an exploitation. Like it needed to be something, and it didn't know which way to go. And I understand because no one involved was really that into the genre, so they weren't quite sure what they were doing. But I don't think I can get nicer than a B. I think we have to draw a line in the sand somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
And I drew it there. So for cult factor, shall we say B?
B.
B for boot. That's German for boat.
Nice.
All right.
Well, where's that leave us?
Where does that leave us? Well, Germany is called Deutschland. And now we're going to the D roll. Because Deutschland starts with B.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. I was waiting for you to validate me before I started to describe what it actually was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the D roll is our little hat on a hat, that little extra sauce, where we say if a movie is a cult classic, a B movie, grindhouse, or trash. And hopefully we'll never do trash. But where are we going to go here?
I mean, for me, this is a B movie.
Yeah, I was going to say B movie too.
Yeah.
For boot.
Yeah. And not in a mean way. It's just, this isn't, to me, like in 10 years, I'm not going to think about this movie.
I might, but not because of the movie, but more because
Not fondly.
well, not finally, just more like, man, that could have gone other directions.
Man, if they would have just added more engine shots, I think it would have made it.
It's like so funny though how the idea of like it playing into like George, what is it, George Kennedy's roles in all those 70s disaster movies, and it's like this is like a disaster, but now there's Nazi ghosts. It's like, oh no, this isn't what we wanted. Have them try to help people after an earthquake or something.
It's like we sullied this good man's reputation from McHale's Navy by putting him on this.
Well, I wouldn't go that.
Project.
I wouldn't go that far. And it's not a shit project; it's a ship project.
I said ship.
It's a ship project.
Shipped project.
Shipped. But yeah, no, I think that B movie is fair because it isn't, because I feel like stuff like Grindhouse to me, like the lower level, has to be like aggressively bad. And then trash has to be irredeemably bad. And this one is like doing its best. Sorry, what were you saying?
Well, I was gonna say, if there's like a bunch of Nazi zombies and they drag everyone underboard and throw them into wood chippers, grindcore for sure. Like we're gonna grindhouse.
You don't think it would be better?
I can't believe I said grindcore. This movie broke me.
It seems like it did. You've been struggling this entire day.
I just did not. I was so amped for this. I was like, it's gonna be fucking great. I did all this promo reel. And then I watched it the first time and I'm like, what have I done? What have I done to my boy?
Look how they massacred my boy.
Look how they massacred my boy. Oh my God.
And you know, the funniest thing is I've known since most of your hype reels how bad it was, but I shared them online anyway.
Yeah.
I just was like, you know what? He's trying.
We're bringing everyone down.
We're just gonna destroy this planet. But no, yeah, this is truly not great. But I think it's interesting enough that's why I say B movie, because it's like, it's competently made. It's tonally consistent. I'll give it that. It definitely is kind of I don't know what the word is. It's kind of rudimentary in the ways that it tries to frame certain things, and that it tries to I don't know, it's just trying to do different things, and I don't think it does it very well, but you know what? It's doing it. And I think it's narratively coherent enough that no one's going to be like, what was that? Then when we're like, why do I see so many engine parts moving? It's like, there's so many engine parts.
You know, I was just thinking about this. I wonder if they like made, like, I know they had a story and it was probably this the whole time, but like they made the movie and they're like, well, who the hell's the enemy? And they're like, I don't know. Well, you got to come up with someone. They're like, you know what? Nazis. It just doesn't make any sense, but whatever.
I just remember I was
talking about that.
When I was telling my mom about this, I was like, she's like, what about that movie? Like, she's asking me about the movie we're doing. And it's just like, it was like 90% shots of boat parts. Like, trying to explain that it's just like constant boat engine parts.
So folks at home who haven't watched this, I'm like, you think we're over exaggerating the amount of engine room shots that are in this movie? I kid you not. I would probably bet someone a beer, so you can, any of you listening, that I would say over 35% of this movie, so I'd say between 30 and 40% of this movie are engine room shots. honestly. So out of an hour and a half, I think 33 to 40 minutes are basically engine room shots.
Okay, so there's one other movie that this movie reminds me of. And
Okay.
here's a shout out to anyone who listens to this who hung out with me in high school. So we found this movie at like Walmart or whatever called Frogs.
Okay.
And we were psyched, dude. These are gonna be about frogs. They're gonna be killing people. It's gonna be killer frogs. It's gonna be sick. We're gonna watch frogs kill people. And
1972.
yeah.
Okay.
Did you find it?
Yeah. Oh my God. Continue.
Wait, I want to make sure it's the right one. Yeah, it's the one with the young Sam Elliott. Yeah. So okay. So we go to watch this movie. We're like, oh, there's gonna be so many people killed by frogs. No one is killed by frogs. But in between people dying from other creatures in the swamp, it'll cut to the frogs in the swamp. It's like, stop cutting to the frogs. Make the frogs kill somebody. It just cuts to the frogs. And I remember some of these creatures in the swamp are like geniuses. Cause you get some that are like a snake, like bites somebody. It's like, oh, they're dead because snake. There's like a point where someone's in a greenhouse and these lizards knock over the right chemicals that mix together to create like nerve gas and kill people with it. It's like, these lizards are chemical geniuses. Why are we cutting back to the frogs who aren't doing anything but sitting in the swamp frogging? And that's what this reminded me of when I was watching it. It's like, we're just going to cut to the boat parts that aren't doing anything, just boating. It's like in Frogs, when you cut to the frogs and they're just sitting there ribbiting. They're not doing anything. It's not menacing. It's just what frogs do. That's just what engine parts do. That's not menacing. That's not frightening. It just establishes that a boat exists. You already did that. I didn't need more boat. I didn't need more frogs. Well, that's not true. In Frogs, I needed more frogs. I needed more frogs to kill people. But there you go. That's my frogs rant.
All right. Well, I think that about does it for the movie.
Is a B movie.
It's a B movie.
Jerry Seinfeld.
Oh boy. Not again. I will never let that shame, like I'll never outlive that. Just great dishonor I brought upon my family.
Don't worry, eventually you'll catch the Avatar and you'll make it up to your family.
Hey, word on the street is we have a pretty special episode coming up, though.
Is that true? First I've heard of it.
First I've heard of it, too.
What?
We
have a very special episode, our next one.
Yeah. And why is it special?
Because it's going to involve little critters doing their thing. Well, not critters. Small creatures.
Small creatures.
And also, as long as plans hold true,
this
will be our first ever episode with a guest. Guest star. Guest music. It's Christopher Guest. But no, yeah, we're going to have a guest next time.
So prior to recording, we're like, do we want to announce who the guest is? And we're like, I think we're going to let this one ride a little bit. So we're not going to say anything.
I still want to say, just in case like something falls through and then he can't record with us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So we can just grab anybody. We're like,
literally any human being on Earth.
It's like, we have a guest. Don't worry about it, guys. And then, I wonder if we should get him a theme song.
That sounds like your department, not mine.
Yeah. All right. We'll figure it out.
My department is just being here.
Your department is just making sure we don't pick shit like this.
What, you're going to lay it at my feet now after you took the blame this entire time?
I've done every time I've chosen, except the Video Dead. That was good.
You did rock it with the Video Dead, dude.
Yeah.
You have a 33% success rate, right?
Kind of.
It was this and Supernaturals and then, Video Dead. And honestly,
I picked another one.
Supernaturals wasn't bad.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
And I think it's going to be better when we reevaluate it.
In German.
It says Deutsch.
So, what movie are we getting into next time?
Oh, we're going to do Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College. We took a
Holy
pit
shit.
stop in the 80s before we went to the 90s because this is 1991, baby.
Call us Marty McFly because we're fucking bouncing around. Back to the future, back to the past. That's how we roll.
Parkinson's.
But okay.
All right, cut that out.
Yeah, I meant like bouncing through time, not literally.
Like a Time Lord. But anyways, yeah, we're going to do Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College. I think it's... Okay, so it's kind of hard to tell. On Tubi, it shows Ghoulies 3 on the title page, but it shows Ghoulies Going to College. Ghoulies : Ghoulies Go to College as the title. So I think... shoot. I pulled up on... I pulled up on that website where we look at where everything's streaming, and it still had that dirty Dingus McGee pulled up. All right, so Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College. It says it's on, all right, Tubi, Vudu, YouTube, and Dish Anywhere.
Oh shit, Dish Anywhere making a comeback.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Hopefully, yeah, at least it'll be on Tubi. And it's not going away anytime soon from their leaving soon page.
Nice. Well,
have you seen any Ghoulies before? Before we sign off,
I've seen 1 and 2. I've actually never seen 3.
what do you think about Ghoulies 1 compared to Ghoulies 2?
I like it, but I love those kind of movies. I'm a sucker. I think they're all great. In terms of like which one's better,
Yeah.
man, I don't know. That's tough. It's like Critters. I love Critters. I love Gremlins.
Well, there's a common theme for those movies for me.
So I'm gonna have to take. I'm gonna say the second one. And the only reason I'm gonna say the second one is I think that they were able to make the Ghoulies look cooler in the second one.
I like that they joined the circus. And plus, in the first one, my problem is the Ghoulies spent too much time sitting around drooling while this dude's reading books. It's like, let my Ghoulies ghoul. Although I will tell you, Ghoulies 1, the best part is they absolutely murdered Mariska Hargitay. Not because I don't like Mariska Hargitay, but because it was very funny to see her. And she sounds exactly like every woman in every 80s movie does. She doesn't sound anything like the detective she would become in Law & Order SVU.
I think she's amazing in pretty much everything she does. I absolutely cannot get the Mariska Hargitay joke out of my head from Love Guru. And then the guys from Workaholics picked it up. It's so good. It's such a good joke.
I'm sure that all three people who saw Love Guru would agree with you.
Okay, that's a little mean, but
I'm sure that Mike Myers will survive.
He only gets stronger. Anywho, well,
Critters 1,
so
though? Well, I guess it has Billy Zane in it, and it does have Dee Wallace.
I guess like it's so hard for me because like those are the first ones I saw, so like I have so much like not nostalgia, but like
I actually might have seen Critters 2 before Critters 1, honestly. Oh, you know what? No, I might have seen Critters 3 first. I don't have to reach through the time dial and figure out when things happen.
Go through the Critterverse.
Well, I don't have to hit the Critterverse. It's in my home. Because I have a... did I ever tell you I have a box set of Critters Blu-rays?
No.
Yeah, they're all in here. They're all in here with me. I think I saw Critters 3 first, actually. So,
Nice.
but yeah, no, it's yeah, I've well, it's actually not all of them now because there's been more, but it was Critters 1 through 4 Blu-rays, and then I was gonna buy the TV show, but then I think they released another movie. So I'm hoping they release a new box set, and I'll just give this one to charity and then, buy the new box set.
Shit, I've never seen Critters 2. I thought Critters 3 was Critters 2.
No, you haven't seen Critters 2?
I don't think I have, because I thought Leo DiCaprio, I thought this was Critters 2.
No, Leo DiCaprio's in Critters 3, dude. Shane.
Oh, fuck.
Shane.
I fucked up.
Shane.
Hold on, let me look up Critters 2.
Shane.
Holy shit. I've got something to tell you.
What?
I've never seen Critters 1.
What? So wait, you thought Critters 2 was Critters 1?
Yeah, in my brain at least.
Everything.
This is great.
Oh no. When I said Billy Zane and Dee Wallace, and you were like, well, I don't remember them in Critters 2.
Dude, this was so long ago.
All right. Well, we won't let the audience deal with this. You can reckon with it yourself. And by that, I mean, I'm going to take a DVD box set to your house, or a Blu-ray box set to your house, and make you watch all the Critters in order so you understand your history.
It's a little aggressive.
It's your heritage, Shane.
It's your heritage. Arthur.
It's all part of the plan.
We're going to Tahiti, Arthur.
Well, I guess we should.
No, I've definitely seen Critters 1 for 1000% sure.
Well, yeah, D Wallace is in it, dude.
No, I just remember the fucking green stuff. I just remember all this. Okay, so I have seen all 3 Critters. Nice.
Well, there's more than 3.
I've seen all 3 Critters.
There's more than 3 Critters. But at least you've seen the first 3, which are the foundational elements of the wider Critters universe.
All right. Well, we better sign off here before we lose everyone.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Well, I think, man, I'm sorry again for this death ship, but I think we're better off for it. We talked about some cool stuff.
We all grew as people.
We grew closer as friends. But that's all I kind of wanted to get into today. Is there anything else you wanted to, last thoughts, any closing remarks or poignant comments about stuff? Life lessons, jokes, epitaphs.
Oh, epitaphs. But no, I don't really have anything else to say. I was going to talk about I saw that there's another Spider movie coming out this year. So I saw that one, Sting, and then I saw there's another ad for another one. I'm like, oh man, are we going to get 2 scary Spider movies? And
Is it called Stung?
No, this one is French. I actually can't remember the title of it. Let's see if I can Google it real fast. French Spider movie. Nope. It's giving me a French World War II movie. Oh, it thought I was saying soldier. Okay, here we go. Spider. It's called.
It's a pretty important. It's a pretty important definition.
So yeah, the movie is called Infested, and it's going to be coming to Shudder, I think. So there's going to be Sting, which is the American Spider movie, and then Infested. And the difference is, I think Sting is a spider that keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Nice.
And becomes a monster, big old spider. And then the spiders that Infested just get smarter and smarter and become a swarm.
Cool.
And I just want as many people as possible to see it so that I'm not the only one, because I hate spiders and I'm very scared of them. So I don't want to deal with it.
Nice.
So that's been your horror news from me. It's two big spider movies in 1 year.
They never stop to ask Or what was it? They never stopped to ask if they should, and only if they could. How's that go?
They spent so much time wondering whether or not they could. They never stopped to wonder whether or not they should. I think it's how it goes.
There you go. That's it. Nailed it.
Selling it. They're selling it. Smash the tape.
Yeah. Well, I think that about does it for us today.
Time to hit the old dusty trails.
Howdy, partner. Well, I've been Shane.
And I've been Deathshire.
And
no, I'll say my actual name. I'm Stefan.
Okay. And you've been listening to the Dark Side Drive-In. Keep it spooky.
Ooh, come on the Deathshire.
Oh my god, he scared at least 7 people. Bye.
Bye.